There we go. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Today, I have my guest, Mr. Andrew Dotson. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Hello, hello. Doing real well. How about you?
All right. I'm doing well. Oh, look at that. I've done screwed everything up. Hold on just a second. Here we go. Welcome, everybody. I would say hello, but there's a lot of people here, so we're just going to say hello to everybody. How is everyone doing tonight?
What's everybody's name?
Well, let's start at the top. Okay, let's see. No, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people here. If you are new, welcome on in. And for those of you, I know a lot of people have been really looking forward to this conversation, so we're really glad to have it. Yes, Cry, you are new. You're always new. Hi, Bree. Hi, a guy doing guy things. Welcome in, everybody. So today we have a special. This is a special thing for us. We're having a stream late on a Tuesday. My bedtime is in an hour, so this is weird for me. I'm like, I don't know about you, Andrew, but I'm early to bed, early to rise.
Yesterday I went to bed at 8:30.
8:30 at night?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I was wondering if you were going to say 8:30 in the morning, and I was like, oh, man.
No, that was like the first 2 years of grad school for sure.
Yeah. I had like a weird experience with my first 2 years of graduate school where I was like, I had my time was like 5 to 7-ish. I could work on homework without being disturbed by my family, like my kids and stuff. So I had to like wake up at like 5 so I could work on homework and like TA stuff and like all this other stuff just so I could have like some quiet time to like get my stuff done before I had to wake them up. AM, Cry, AM. Yeah, we do have some people from the UK here, so it's midnight over there. And Jax is here from South Africa, so it's got to be 1 for you, Jax. Man. Yeah, it was nutty.
You have your time zones memorized for South Africa? Kinda.
Well, it's because Jax is a mod, so she's been around for a long time, so I'm getting comfortable with it. And Simon Clark and I have a lot of overlap of community, so I kind of like, I'm getting used to the BST times just because trying to figure out what's going on. But anyways, welcome in, everybody. So a few announcements really quickly for the stream. Tomorrow is, of course, our game show. Very excited about that. If you've never done it, it happens live on this channel, roughly 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do a little bit of quantum computing discussion series before that. So 2 p.m. tomorrow, we'll be doing our game show. There will be a fabulous prize for the first place winner. And it's going to be a good time. Tomorrow's theme for the game show is going to be thermodynamics and statistical mechanics. So if those were some of your favorite courses in your physics career, or even just favorite things to learn about, that is tomorrow is your day to shine. So very much looking forward to that. And then on Thursday, we have our normal study streams at 8:30 in the morning, trying to get some good work done. And then we'll be back on Sunday for another fun stream with some different things planned. I got some more things up my sleeve. So it's going to be a lot of fun for this week. But tonight is, of course, the special night where we get our friend Andrew Dotson on. We'll get to learn a lot about Andrew and his research and his passions. And then we're going to play a little drinking game, I think, which will be a good time. We're going to be playing arXiv versus snarXiv, but we're going to be playing it with a little bit of a twist. So we'll see how that works. Of course, there will be a formal Q&A after my conversation with Andrew. If you would like to submit a question to Andrew, you can submit it at any time. My mods and I will be watching the queue. The best way to submit the question is to type !ask followed by your question. Chat will be moving, and I won't be able to keep track of these questions, so I'm probably not going to try. But if you type !ask followed by a question, then there's a good chance it'll get into the queue, and my mods and I will keep an eye on it, and then I can ask Andrew when the time is right. I guess when the time is right. But anyways,
we'll just know. We'll have a feeling.
Yeah, we'll know.
Right.
We'll bounce back. We'll bounce it back and forth. We'll feel it out. So that is the best way to ask a question, and hopefully Streamlabs behaves for me. It seems like it's already not behaving too well, but we'll see. Anyways, so Andrew, how's your day today?
It's been hot, man. It's like 100 and some change in New Mexico. It's been kind of miserable these last few weeks, but it's been so distracting for work as well. But yeah, I'm not TAing over the summer, so it's just been focusing on research, which is nice. Just finished the summer school, so yeah, starting to calm down a little bit.
How was I mean, like, how's your school transitioning back into the swing of things?
I think the thing that a lot of people are doing, which is smart, is they're pretending like nothing ever happened and not learning from mistakes. No, like, yeah, this next semester it's all back in person. I have no one said if they're requiring masks or anything like that. I don't think there's any, like, I don't even know if you're legally allowed to ask if people have been vaccinated or so yeah, everything is going back in person. I'm not TAing, so it's not really my problems, thankfully. So but yeah, it seems like our school is just okay. That whole year and some change was weird.
Just erase
Moving
it.
on.
Now, like, are you able to, like, go to your office to work, or, like, do you
Yeah.
just not really want to because of the?
I don't really see anything I do can be done anywhere. So
Sure.
I don't know. It'd be nice to see people again, but also I think I might wait and see how things go when we open up the university again and see if people just start dropping like flies again. Or
What's your group dynamic like? Like, do you have, like, a group that meets regularly and stuff for research?
Not exactly. I spoke to my research advisor for the first time in like 2 months yesterday. So the communication is pretty sparse, but yeah, I have 2 advisors and both of them are in Germany, so the time zone thing is a little off.
Oh,
And,
okay. Yeah. That'd be nice.
I think they're both just enjoying their summer.
and in Europe, somewhere in Europe. It's gotta be nice.
Exactly.
Cool. All right, well, let's get rolling on this. This is gonna be a relatively casual conversation. Believe it or not, we haven't started yet. That, even though that was in fact casual conversation, but we're gonna learn a bit about Andrew. I'm excited to learn about Andrew and the things he's doing, the things he's done. And again, at any given time, if you'd like to ask a question, !ask followed by your question, and my moderators and I will try to keep track of that. Just bear in mind, if you ask one question and we don't get a chance to approve it, then you will not be able to ask another one until myself or my mods can approve it. So be patient with that. If you ask a question and nothing happens, then you'll just have to wait a second. And I apologize. But that's the best we could. So Andrew, you have a lot of videos kind of discussing on YouTube, where most of us know you from, discussing a lot about your life in undergraduate and stuff. So we're gonna I want to ask you a couple questions about some of the younger parts of your life. Like, what was your earliest education experience like elementary school, middle school, high school? How was that for you? Like, do you have any fond memories or favorite subjects?
So elementary school, middle school, I didn't really care. School was something that you just had to go to, and then you went home, and then you started to enjoy your day. No, I wouldn't say I had particularly fond memories from the early days of school. I didn't have a favorite subject. I wasn't particularly good at any of them, and I was also like a little lazy, I guess. So yeah, it wasn't until high school where I started being like, I should start thinking about some of this stuff a little bit more, taking it a bit more seriously.
So what about high school then? Did you have like a subject that you really excelled in, or that you really enjoyed going to?
Well, so I've always enjoyed entertaining people, which in school makes you a little bit of a class clown, I guess. So I think that's kind of how I saw myself in the early days. And then it wasn't until like one of my history classes where the teacher was like, all right, I got to step out for a minute. I don't know why they left us alone, but they had to step out. They kind of pointed to me. It was like, Andrew, you're responsible. Make sure the class is on track. And that was the first time that a teacher was like, you are, you know? So weirdly enough, that was kind of a pivotal point.
Okay.
And I think that's when I started taking the school stuff a little bit more seriously. And then I had some really cool like chemistry and physics classes. So my physics teacher in high school, when we were learning about harmonic motion and stuff, he said that he was going to bring in his guitar. And at that time I was doing chorus and stuff like that. I've always enjoyed music, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. I like playing music as well. So he invited me to bring mine in as well. And we kind of just jammed for the class. And that's kind of when I was like, oh, wow, physics is awesome. This is what physics is. So yeah, I think high school physics, like the whole track could have gone very differently if I had a dull physics teacher. It's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, imagine your biology teacher bringing in a guitar, and that would have been completely different. It would have been Andrew Dotson, the biologist.
I started undergrad studying biology.
Did you really?
So yeah, I wasn't a physics student at first.
Oh wow.
And then I decided bio just wasn't for me. It was just too much like, this is what this is called, and this is what this is called.
Yeah.
And here's a cycle. Here's another cycle.
They're so boring. I mean, like, we have a lot of biologists in our community, so
I'm sure
we're allowed to poke fun.
I'm sure. I mean, intro physics isn't particularly not many people, I should say, care too much about friction and motion in a plane, but it gets more interesting, and I'm sure bio does as well. But for someone who doesn't have a good memory, bio just wasn't appropriate for me.
Yeah, there's bio. It's one of those things where like I'm always, my mind gets kind of blown when people start talking about their research in a different field, because like I would have never thought that was a thing. You know what I mean? Like when a biology person just starts going off about like how interesting like different parts of the brain, the influences and stuff they have on us. I just would have never thought that to be a thing, so it never even crossed my mind. But it is really like fascinating to hear about and things like that. So I imagine like once you specialize in stuff, it is pretty exciting. But I took barely any biology or chemistry classes at all, and for me it's all just, it is something unattainable. Like, I'm just not that. I don't have the capacity to sit down and learn anything like that.
What's funny is on my so since I switched, I thought I was going to be a medical doctor. That's why I was doing bio in the first place. And since I switched to physics, now in my transcript, it just says that I took organic chemistry as an elective. So it sounds like kind of a flex. It's just like, yeah, I just wanted to see what it was all about. But in reality, I kind of had to take it.
The one physics person who took organic chemistry.
Yeah.
Makes everyone else like, oh, wow, look at him. It's like, you're going to know a lot about carbon. So did you have, so that was cool. So you had obvious passions, and like, so you said you're into music. Like that's, to me, it seems like there's a lot of, like people who want to do research. There's a lot of overlap between that and musical talents or art or something like that, where you have like another creative outlet. It's almost like there's a creativity inside of like the researcher, and they need like an obvious outlet when they're growing up to like have it. So for me, like I loved music. Like you played guitar. Like what else did you do besides guitar? Did you just do guitar and chorus? Were you in a band?
I did guitar, chorus, and I play piano as well. So those were like the three things that I kind of hovered around. Because when my sister, she had a guitar. It was just a little Mexican Fender Strat. And like when she would take guitar lessons, she would just go to like hit on the guitar teacher, I guess. So she never learned anything. But she had her amp and her guitar. So at one point I just kind of picked it up and was like, I guess at that time I didn't know that you could Google how to play songs and YouTube how to play songs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, I would go to Guitar Center or something and get like a tab book or a chord book and just start messing around. And then, so I started guitar first, but it was like that awkward thing where you would play bar chords and it just sounded like any other song. So no one could really hear it and be like, oh, wow, that's this song. So then like my family was like, yeah, you should try to learn how to sing over playing the guitar as well.
Yeah.
That way, it's more enjoyable. So I started doing that. And then there are songs that don't sound as good on guitar, and we had like a little cheap Casio keyboard. So then I started messing around. That's just how it
It's
went.
a must-have. The Casio keyboard. Did it have all the preset dance or like songs and stuff with like where you could just press a button and then press play and this like corny like dance song?
Yeah, it had that one song that's like oh my god, I'm blanking on it, but it's like the everything I do it for you. One of those older songs, and it would just start playing it automatically. And I think you could mute yourself, so it would make it look like you were actually playing the song.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Jeez. Oh, memories. That's cool. What other extracurricular things were you into, other than like music? Did you play any sports?
Yeah, my family was always big on making sure I did something competitive. And like, when you're a kid, so I did like the little league baseball and soccer and that stuff. And then in middle school and high school, I moved to Virginia, and everyone here was just obsessed with skateboarding. So I was like, oh my God, Mom, I have to get a skateboard. I can't not see everyone here skateboards, and I'm here wearing sneakers and everyone has, Vans and stuff on. Yeah. So my mom, being the supportive person she was, she went out and we got like this cheap guitar on eBay, art guitar, skateboard on eBay, and I started skateboarding. And my dad was like, all right, that's fine, but if you're gonna do the skateboarding thing instead of a sport, you have to find a way to do it competitively. So I started doing like these skateboard competitions around like the state and stuff. And I actually got sponsored for a little bit, which was
Did you really?
like a weird little tidbit from a local skate shop. So yeah, I did the skateboarding. I was really into that. And then I played lacrosse in high school as well. That's reasonably big in like the northern East Coast, I guess.
Yeah,
So.
we all play. There's a million lacrosse teams around here. I don't know. I never understood lacrosse too much. I never played it. It seems like it's very physically demanding. Like soccer is very physically demanding. And I think that's a good. That's a lot of fun. But yeah, I never wrapped my head around it. I was a goalkeeper.
It's really
for soccer.
similar to like. It's so super similar to basketball and hockey, actually. Like
Oh, really?
The kind of plays, like when you set up fast breaks and stuff. The rules are very similar.
I always imagined it as more of like soccer, I guess, but that does make sense. It's like hockey is so much contact. I had a buddy from southern PA and Maryland, Virginia region. Like he kind of grew up all over there, and he was huge into hockey, like loved hockey, and said that it was really big where he grew up. So. I don't know. But anyways, that's pretty cool. What about science fairs? Did you ever do any science fairs? Do you have any cool science fair stories?
No, and I wish I did. I did not care. I just did not care about science growing up. I don't know how the switch exactly happened. I guess I kind of said it was my cool science teachers in high school, but in elementary and stuff, I wasn't interested. I had like Pokemon posters when I was a kid, and my mom knew that was my interest, and every night before bed she'd be like, okay, what is this Pokemon? What does it evolve into? What's it tweaked to? And like this matters. You have to get. So that was, for some reason it was that and like dinosaurs, I guess. But every little kid loves dinosaurs.
That's so cool. I had, I actually grew up on Pokemon stuff too, and now my kids are so excited about it. And like we watched the Indigo League, the first season, like we watched through that on Netflix recently, and like I still collect cards sometimes, like not as much as I did when I was younger, but like my brother and I had like legal decks like before COVID. We had completely legal decks that we would play with and stuff. And then I was looking through my cards, and my kids like were trading with like people, and like I was just like, they didn't have any cards. They had like 1 or 2 cards, but they were like getting cards from people and then trading them and stuff. So I was like, okay, well I'm just gonna give you a little stack. So I remember I gave my daughter a stack of like I don't know, 8 or 12 cards, and she came back with like 20 something cards, and I was just like, how did you do that? Like,
Stonks.
you hustled so
That's funny.
hard. And like they come back with like EX and GX and things like that, and I'm just like, where are you getting these from? And it was really
That's
funny.
crazy.
Yeah.
No, what's weird is like, yeah, back in like 2005 through 2007, that time it was like the Pokemon or those kinds of TV shows, and then like there was when RuneScape was a really big game, and now fast forward like over 10 years later, 15 years later, what am I doing now? I'm playing Pokemon on Switch and playing old school RuneScape on my computer. I'm like, I never changed.
One of my mods in chat is actually like a really good friend of mine from school, and he still plays RuneScape constantly.
So do I.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, he's Dr. Topher in chat. You play.
Yeah, I play old school.
Yeah, there you go. That's hilarious. Yeah, it's funny to see how those things change, but it's cool to have parents that support like that. Like my parents are super supportive as well, but it's awesome that like you had a mom who was sitting there and like trying to walk you through the evolutions and stuff. Like I try to do that with my kids too, but like, you know, it's super refreshing to hear. So what was the transition like for you to go from high school to college? Where did you go to undergraduate school?
So I started out at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, and the reason I was going there was because they have a really big connection to a medical school in Richmond, called MCV. So you could effectively increase your chance of getting into med school if you went to VCU, but it was a lot more expensive. And so I wanted to be a doctor. Part of it was I had a specific kind of here, I'm just playing with my inhaler. I had a specific kind of interest in medicine. I always thought cancer was interesting. And I knew that from my personality, like I don't really get too bummed out and things. So I thought like working in cancer would be almost something like a calling. So when I was graduating high school, I was like, maybe that's something that would be pretty cool to do, and obviously super rewarding. And so I went to VCU first, and as I said, biology just wasn't really for me, and I knew it wasn't for me because I had really cool professors too. And then I was watching all of those TV shows like the Into the Universe with Stephen Hawking and Cosmos with Carl Sagan. I was obsessed with Michio Kaku, and that's the stuff I would talk about with my dad. And he kind of planted the seed that was like, you don't come here talking about how cool the brain is or the cell cycle. So you're just talking about the wacky stuff, physics stuff that you see on TV. Maybe that's where your heart is.
Can I ask you, what are your current thoughts on Michio Kaku now that you're like more seasoned?
There's definitely a place for the people who get those prospective physics students interested in physics in the first place, and I think that's the goal he sets out to do, and I think that's what he does. So there's the popularizers like Michio Kaku and Neil deGrasse Tyson and those people. The way they explain things and the enthusiasm, it's contagious. So I think they do that right. What it doesn't really do, in my opinion, is, if you think that's what physics is, and you go into your first day of undergraduate physics, and you're like, okay, where's string theory? When did we start talking about that stuff? You're in for a rude awakening, right? So,
well, that's why I think it's so important for what you do, that like you bring in this. You bring in the reality of physics, like this is, it's we've all experienced. I think that's one of the reasons why people like to watch your videos is like we experience like the love of textbooks and like the appreciation for a good like solid derivation, and like those are the things that excite like us, so that's why I think it's awesome. I agree with you. I think they are very good at like driving excitement into the field, but I love to see places like your channel and Simon Clark's and other channels where it's like, this is what it's really like too, like in case anybody is like wondering the things that we love and the things that we don't love, like this is also what it's really like. So I think that's huge.
Man, it's funny. It's funny you bring up Simon, because I probably would not have made a channel had I not like come across his videos first, when I was like, okay, what can I expect if I start doing physics? And I came across his channel. At that point, I think he was still at Oxford, actually.
Oh, wow.
Before he started doing the PhD, and I was like, wow, that stuff looks so exciting. And yeah, so that he was hugely inspirational for my stuff. It's I get called the poor man's Simon Clark on a regular basis.
No. I think you guys have so much different. Your styles are so different, and I think you each have your own spot, and I love it.
This has changed though. Like
yeah,
his cool, but I guess it has to if you get out of academia. Like he can't anymore say what his experiences are like in grad school or in undergrad, so
Sure.
he kind of had to adapt to something else. But I used to love watching his vlogs and stuff like that.
Well, that was the I mean, I was talking to him about it, and I for me, like I was, I had no idea what to expect with graduate school. But then you could just find a place where you just watch someone tell you exactly what to expect. And I was like, okay, like this is incredibly helpful and like really helpful in making my decisions. So, yeah, very, very cool. But that's cool. So was there anybody who was like, okay, so let me think. Who was like the most inspirational like influence for you then? Was it like a science communicator, or was it even someone like in your like career up to, from your undergraduate to your graduate?
I mean, I guess you can take inspiration for a lot of different aspects of what you're making or what you're doing, because when it comes to like explaining things, there's a reason Richard Feynman is famous outside of physicists talking about him. Physicists, that's what's cool about him, is like he's famous for being really good at explaining things to the general public, but he's also famous amongst physicists for his contributions. So yeah, as far as like how to explain things to people, or how to convince yourself that you know what you're talking about, absolutely him. As I said, my I guess when I make the video, so you brought up showing people what it's actually like. What the kind of obvious way to do that is by recording what you're doing, which I found like the inspiration from like Simon Clark. And then I realized I wasn't really getting any better at making videos, and that's when I was also watching Casey Neistat, who would make a new video every single day. And I was like, I bet I would get a lot better at telling stories, at editing and throwing something together if I challenged myself to make the videos every single day. So for 314 days, that's what I did. So yeah, Casey Neistat was inspiring for that.
How long?
314 days.
Wow. You straight? Did you take any breaks?
Yeah, I took a break when I moved from Virginia to New Mexico, because it took us like 5 days to a week to get here, so it wouldn't have been really practical to do that. And maybe like a small handful of times if I was like really sick, but for the most part, every single day.
And like, how did that process go? Did you like I don't know if I could produce that much content. Did you like just think of something every day, shoot a
some days were harder than others. Some were, I mean, they weren't all quality videos by any stretch of the imagination. Some were just I learned how to be efficient with it, where it's like if I had to study something for an exam, that's what my video was on, was like what I'm learning about, how the exam went. Some days I would just, if it was a day that I was particularly pressed for time, I would do stupid like physics quizzes, where like history quizzes or stuff like that. And that was yeah. So some days were really hard to put something together. I know there would be days where I wouldn't start making it until like 10 o'clock at night, and I would just kind of ramble, and that would be the video that day.
Was it like the editing process? Was that like strenuous, or were you just sort of like cut it up and ship it?
Yeah, I don't think anyone would say I have sophisticated editing skills. It's just I'm not a perfectionist at all. So yeah, for that it was just don't let perfection be the enemy of good enough, and
Oh, I
just
got you.
make
Yeah,
something new every day.
I got you. Yeah, but I mean,
And
like
then
it probably worked, right? Like, did you feel like at the end of it that you were a better storyteller and like more like comfortable in front of a camera and everything?
I think so. And I think what I tried to do was make sure that if I did give myself more time to make a video, I could do something with that extra time. Whereas like the
Oh
first year
yeah.
that I
Okay.
started making videos, it wouldn't matter how much time I gave myself on a project. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have the skills to, you know, make the video better. Whereas once all of that was done, I was pretty scared because at that point, when I made all of those videos in a row, that was like my thing. Was I was the person who made a new video about physics every day, no matter what, for the most part. I wasn't sure what would happen if once that stopped.
Uh huh.
So that was kind of a scary transition to starting to try to make more quality videos, I guess.
Um.
But,
Do you ever go back and watch some of the earlier videos?
so not the I typically don't do the daily ones. I don't watch those, but it is fun to watch like the vlogs where other people are in it,
Uh huh.
because it's just like it's like a memory that you can actually watch. Like
That's cool.
going
Yeah.
back to my first vlogs, and Kelly's in there, my girlfriend Kelly, before I knew that I was into her.
Yeah.
Like seeing that stuff is pretty cool.
That's definitely really cool. And then yeah, so it'd be like, you know, that's wicked cool that you have that memory on footage. Um, so let's get back a little bit to school because I'm still kind of curious about some of the things for your undergraduate, especially like research for undergraduate. Like, what was your research experience with undergraduate? How important was it to you for your own not only development but getting into a graduate program and things like that?
uh, Research is the most important thing before doing grad school. I think like an undergrad research experience, it's the most it is a must. You need to, maybe you can get into grad school without doing it, but I don't think you should convince yourself that you want to do grad school for physics unless you get a taste of research first, if you can do it. But um so I worked first with one of my professors in the accelerator physics division at Jefferson Lab in Newport News, Virginia. And there it was mostly just a computation project, like optimizing, writing a code to optimize certain things that have to work in a particle accelerator, like one that was being proposed. And that's when I learned that I liked coding, but that's also when I learned I wasn't particularly interested in how particle accelerators worked, or at least I didn't want to go down that professionally.
Sure.
um, it's there's a funny story there, because I was talking to my advisor at the time, like my supervisor for that project, and I said that I thought nuclear and particle physics, specifically the theory, looked really interesting to me. And he said, nuclear physics or nuclear theory, particle theory is a lot like being a musician. He says, if you're the best musician, you're going to be fine. You're going to be selling out gigs. You're going to be living the lavish lifestyle. If you're a really good musician, it's going to be hard, right? There are a lot of really good musicians out there who don't get their break. And he kind of made the analogy to nuclear and particle theory, where it's like, it's going to be really hard to find like that tenure track position as a nuclear theorist unless you're one of the best. And I kind of went away from that as like, someone has to be, you know.
Yes.
And then I in my computational physics class in undergrad, my professor for it is a nuclear theorist. He's actually a pretty big name in nuclear physics. And I was walking down the hallway with Kelly one day, and he pokes his head out of the office and he goes, well, really, he looks at Kelly and he goes, are any of you looking for something to do this summer? And I think Kelly already had an internship, something for astronomy. And she told him, and I was like, no, I guess I don't really have anything to do. So he, and then like next week's he contacted me. He's like, well, I do nuclear theory, and maybe we can chat a bit and do like a summer project together. And most of it was just reading and learning and just applying the stuff that was already established. Because as an undergrad, let me phrase it this way: me as an undergrad, I had no hope of really understanding what I was doing at that point. I didn't have the chops yet to really tackle quantum field theory.
Same.
So a lot of it was just taking what was already established and coding stuff up. But that's when I learned, like, I really enjoyed the math. I thought the subject and the concepts were really cool. And that's kind of what it's all about is with those undergrad research experiences. If you find something you like, that's really good, but it's nice to get a taste of what's really out there so that you can start narrowing stuff down. I don't think when you apply to grad school, anyone expects you to know exactly what you want to do, but it's nice to have an idea that you like the process of doing research, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And like, was that influential in getting into grad school?
Doing research?
Like your specific research. Like, how did you utilize that to get into graduate school?
Oh,
Were you the network style where you like networked amongst nuclear physicists until you found a project you wanted to learn? Were you like, was it just like a resume booster going for a school that you liked particularly?
I don't think, I mean, I'm the graduate admissions committee, so I can't be for sure, but I don't think they're looking for you knowing exactly what research you want to do. I think what they're looking for is making sure you've taken the steps. The grad school is investing in you. They're going to be giving you a job, and they're expecting for you to produce a PhD at the end of it. And they want to make sure that that's a smart investment, that you've taken the steps to demonstrate that you know that you want to do research, that you want to do this professionally. So yeah, if you can do a couple REUs or SULE programs, or just knock on a professor's door and say, hey, can I shadow you a little bit, whatever it might be. I think it's hugely influential in a graduate admissions committee. I mean, can you think of an instance where it wouldn't be, where someone's saying, no, I haven't tried anything, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna like it, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And Tropical Geek in chat says they look for you to have the drive to do it, and and that you can do it in their approximate timeline. And I think that's very true for a lot of professors who are, considering a new fresh wave of graduate applicants, right? They want to see that you've done research simply because they want you to have tried, and they want to know that you've seen deadlines, that you've experienced what it's like to, like, hold your feet to the fire a little bit. So it's hugely important. I agree. And yeah, I know that sometimes people are interested in like networking and trying to go that route, like the whole teacher versus department idea, or professor versus department idea, where like, should you look for a project with a professor, or should you look for a school to go to for graduate school? And I never really have like a straight answer to give for that. It's always sort of like it depends on how certain you want to do that. Because if you get to graduate school and you don't like it, you might be in a little bit of a pickle finding a new project. So very, very interesting.
I think the project is, I argue, it's not the most important part, because at the end you'll be done, and then you're gonna have to move on to something else. And if you only think you can like that one thing that has an expiration date probably before you finish it, I think it's important to, if you're thinking about grad school, you should try to convince yourself that there's a lot of things you can find in physics that you could get behind and that you could pursue professionally. It shouldn't just be one thing. And I know people who graduate with their PhDs where their postdoc is completely different from what their PhD was in, but you have that one skill set that the other people in that might not have as much. So the interest is definitely big, but I don't know if having a very specific topic is the most important.
Sure, I hear that definitely.
Maybe advisors too. When I was talking with some people from my the nuclear physics like summer school, they brought up a good point where making sure you have an advisor who you can work with is really big, really important.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
definitely.
That you mix well together.
Yeah, there's always that chemistry that needs to be there to get something accomplished. So, how's grad school going so far? You're finishing your third year. You and I both finished our third years. How's your wrap up to your third year going?
Third year was way easier. And third year was a breeze compared to the first 2 years.
Yeah,
like,
so much better.
I thought people do like to like other people. People do like other people to think what they do is really difficult and challenging. And that, like, only they could do it.
Yeah.
Not everyone, of course, but there's no shortage of people like that. So when I heard stories about grad school, I kind of thought, you just want to complain, or it can't be that bad. But then you actually do like Jackson E&M, and you're like, wow, oh,
I have to know this. Yeah, like the first
2 years were really hard for me. What
the
about
first
you,
year especially. The first year especially was absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. Especially you have your first TA assignments, and like you have to prepare everything for the first time. It's not like they tell you it's like 20-25 hours of work a week. No, it ain't. It ain't 25 hours of work the first time you do it. You're writing everything. Like, it's like now, my third year was maybe a little bit less than 20 hours a week. But my first year, it was much more like 30-35 hours to try to get all my TA work done. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even close. So, like, it was really rough. Second year, I was only taking one class. So that was a lot better. I had the unfortunate circumstance of having to work through my first 2 years of graduate school at like a part-time job. So that was really, yeah, that was really brutal. And like, it was like you get done with school and you're immediately off to work. So I
made videos and I thought that was hard, but having an actual job, that almost sounds impossible. That sounds really brutal.
Yeah, it was very unpleasant. But you know, it was what it was. And I got through it. The third year was probably the easiest so far. It was definitely the easiest so far.
Did you take any classes your third year?
I did. I took one this spring. I took an advanced condensed matter class, but that was because I was changing projects. So I had to learn the language of condensed matter. So that was kind of like what it was. It was like, what's an energy band gap? And along the way, we're going to talk about everything you need to know to talk about it. I was like,
right.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Difficult, but you know, it was definitely a change. But that was the only class I had to take. And yeah, but also my third year I was doing this project too, which was like different for me, you know? Like it was an extra thing that I wanted to do. I learned a ton doing this project and like and other things, but it was still like, and there was also that transition from one project to another, which was really strange. So yeah. That was my third year. My third year was unusually difficult, I guess. But it was way better than my first and second year because I didn't actually have a part-time job this year, so that was nice. I guess what was the most surprising thing about graduate school so far? Like for me, it was the teaching. Like I actually really enjoy teaching. What was your most surprising thing so far?
I thought I would like TAing more than I did. Yeah, you say you liked it. I don't think I was a huge fan of TAing, mostly because not a lot, but you'll have the people who just try to pull the wool over your eyes or just turn in like crap, and you're like, dude, I don't want to be the bad guy, or yeah, it can be really frustrating.
Your
what
10
people
types
turn
of
in
TA
sometimes.
videos. Like when you did the 10 types of TA videos that you have, like those are so true. Like there's so many people who are like, they're like, I felt like I experienced that myself, like all of those. Like I didn't want to be like, you know, I agree with you. I didn't want to be the bad guy, but like at some point, like I just sit my students down and be like, look at, like y'all are screwing up and you need to stop, okay? And it's definitely pretty funny. But yeah, TAing was a different experience. Do you have like a like do you have fond memories of TAing?
Yeah, so TAing was overall, I would say was positive. What I enjoyed more, we have like SI instructors, where in supplement an actual class, there would be recitations where a grad student would come up with like problems for the class to solve or go over material that was unclear. So it actually felt like teaching
Yep.
rather than, conducting a lab or something like that. And those were a lot of fun. So I got to do that for like modern physics. And one of the things that was really fun was my research advisor taught the students modern physics class. So that's like their first exposure to relativity and quantum mechanics in the same class. And he had to go to like a conference or something for one of the lectures. So he was like, "Do you mind taking over for me for one class?" And he goes, they're doing special relativity, and I was about to introduce the concept of four vectors and stuff, and I was like, say no more. So I introduced these poor kids to like tensors, and
Nice.
that was really fun.
That's cool. Yeah, so it's I love that, and like the idea I've always done that supplementary instruction. We call it like discussion sections, but like it's the same thing. Like I have a list of problems to solve, and I go over the concept. I'll show demonstrations if it's easy, and I have them available and whatnot. So that's that's very I really enjoyed that part. But yeah, I was just surprised by that. Was there anything else about graduate school that like surprised you that you actually like really enjoyed or disliked? I guess maybe that's something to say. Is there anything that you really disliked? For me, homework was also a huge surprise.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, but it also doesn't like it doesn't count for much. Like it matters so much more, and it counts for so much less. Like I was just so like surprised, like how hard it was to do, and how much effort you had to put into it, and how little it mattered towards your overall like grades and things like that.
I don't know about you, but in my experience, a lot of my professors for grad school were like German or Russian, and I think in grad school the professors might have a bit more freedom with how they structure the classes. And I know in places like Germany, or at least when they went to school, they didn't have exams, they didn't have home. It was, you're an adult, learn the material, and then there will be something at the end. And I think that's kind of how they treated us. So that might be why they weight it less, because it's for you. And if you weight it too much, then I think it gives too much of an incentive to cheat, maybe. I mean, good luck cheating on a lot of graduates. There's not, I guess some stuff is out there, but yeah, the homework is pretty brutal. I guess what I was surprised about though is with all of like the really long nights for the homework, they did take a lot longer than undergrad, but I always left it with this viewpoint of struggling, being my head against the wall for the assignment, and at the end being like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get why we had to solve these problems. This was important.
It was so important, and you honestly felt like you had to try to do it like that. Like it wasn't something where you could just be like, okay, I can sort of like fumble my way through this. Like Googling is not going to help. You can Google topics and hopefully find like some help with the topics, but like you could only do so much as far as solving the problem goes through external means. Like most of it had to be done internally, and it mattered to you that you actually got it done, and that it was that you understood it, and that was what was interesting about the homework for me. Certainly a surprise, a different change of pace than what undergraduate homework was like.
Right.
Definitely. What about after graduate school? Do you feel like you're going to be looking at academia or industry?
Definitely academia. The more I learn about it, though, the more scary it kind of is. Just knowing that it's not like you put in your time and you do a PhD and now you have a tenure track faculty position somewhere. It's like then you have to do these temporary postdoc positions, and who knows where that's going to take you, and who knows how many you're going to have to do. And then let's say you put in that time and you do good research, and then you get a job at like a university, and then it's like, okay, now I'm a professor, but really you're a like an adjunct professor, and you have to do that for 5-7 years
Yeah.
before you can be an associate professor,
Yeah.
and now you're finally tenure track, right? So I'm excited for it, but I'm also like, God, dude, really? This now, all this too?
Yeah, lots of it's a process, and it's a scary one, and like you hope you're one of the lucky ones that you can skip a few of the steps, but there's never any guarantees to that. uh yeah, it's definitely a process. uh so about your research, I'm kind of curious if you could explain a little bit to us about like what it is that you actually like are interested in, and what's your project in.
Yeah. So I guess the best place to start is in like a scattering experiment in nuclear physics. So I guess that's what it first starts out with is, you have a beam of electrons or protons or whatever that you scatter off of a target particle. And what the experimentalists measure are cross sections. And what a cross section tells you is what is the probability, given this initial state, that this final state happens. That sounds pretty vague, but as an example, you could say, like, what's the probability that I scatter an electron off of a proton and I create these pions with this momentum, and that's what I measure, or they get scattered into this angle. And what the cross-section measurements do is they give you insight into the interaction that's being probed. So you have like your strong and weak nuclear forces, electromagnetism. And in these scattering experiments, you typically, a lot of times you'll use like an electron beam or something, because we understand electromagnetism very, very well, such that when something happens that is due to the strong interaction, it's easy to tell because we know what would happen if these things were just electromagnetic. We can calculate that stuff exactly. But in these scattering experiments, that's what the experimentalists measure, are the cross sections. And in addition to understanding the interaction, they give you information on the structure of the target that you're hitting. You can, if it's a elementary particle and you say, I want to see how the distribution of the particle looks, it would be something like a delta function, like a straight, like a very steep peak. And if you have something that deviates from that, something that deviates from that point-like particle cross-section, that gives you a hint that you're hitting a composite particle. You're hitting something that's made of other stuff. So one of the questions that you can start to ask is, well, how is that other stuff distributed? How do the properties of the target come from the properties of the stuff that make it up? And it turns out that that's not a really trivial question to go about answering. So some properties you could be interested in is like, how is charge distributed inside of the target? How, if your proton that you're scattering off of has some momentum, how do the quarks that make it up share that momentum? Does one of them have most of it? Is it split, 33% across the board? How does that work? So in those scattering experiments, you get access to a lot of that kind of information. Now, what I do is sort of like that, where that information, it can be contained in what are referred to as form factors. So if you're interacting with electromagnetically, you're scattering electrons off of a proton that communicate by exchanging a photon that's electromagnetic, then you can get access to those electromagnetic form factors, charge densities, magnetic moments, things like that. What I do is where that thing that you're probing isn't electromagnetic, but it's gravitational in nature. So rather than, to get a little bit technical, rather than taking matrix elements of the electromagnetic current, I take matrix elements of when your conserved current is the energy momentum tensor, which couples to gravity. So when you write out those form factors and you say, well, what does that stuff represent? It gives you information into how things like mass and energy is distributed inside of the proton. How is angular momentum distributed? And then there's an additional thing that's called the D term, which people really didn't pay any attention to what that thing represented until very recently, mostly because no one really knew how to access gravitational form factors experimentally when you can't exactly scatter gravitons, right? That's not a very practical means of doing a scattering experiment, because the other forces are so much stronger, they would dominate any process. But in recent years, people have gotten clever on how to access that information. So now we're learning how to really probe those form factors and the D term. And what I'm doing is figuring out how to relate this D term to densities that would be a bit more physically intuitive. So as an example, I said there's form factors for E and M can be related to things like charge and magnetic moments. We think the D term describes how pressure is distributed inside of the proton. So with understanding the D term, you understand pressure. With understanding pressure, you understand stability of particles.
Oh, okay.
So that would be understanding, really getting a handle on this guy would tell you immediately if models that we're working with correspond to stable particles in the first place.
Wow.
So that's kind of a long explanation, but it's also the short explanation, I think, because I'm really interested in this D term and how to relate it to densities. You run into some additional hiccups because the concept of a three-dimensional density is kind of meaningless in special relativity if you want to have a quantum mechanical theory that's consistent with special relativity, because for one, you can only define it in a specific frame, and two, if your particle gets boosted, like if you're going to a different frame where the target is moving, one of those directions of that the density is associated with is length contracted. So it's not a Lorentz invariant quantity. So I'm also trying to relate it to something that would be Lorentz invariant, which would be like a transverse density. So if it's moving this way, then the stuff in this way is length contracted, but the transverse stuff is not. So you can define this like two-dimensional density, which people have figured out how to do for electromagnetism, but no one's really figured out how to do that for these gravitational form factors.
That's pretty wild. Like how far away is this to relating to like when you say gravitational form factor, like how far away is that related to like Einstein's field equations and the energy momentum tensor inside of that?
So there's kind of two ways of defining the energy momentum tensor. There's how Einstein would do it, which is where you take the action and you vary it with respect to the metric tensor. And when you do that, well, by construction, you get an energy momentum tensor that's symmetric because the metric is symmetric. If you define it in quantum field theory, you typically do that using Noether's theorem. And as a consequence, you don't always get that the energy momentum tensor is symmetric, which is really important because since the energy momentum tensor is gravitational in nature, GR tells us what it needs to be. Quantum field theory doesn't. So right. if Noether's theorem is telling us the energy momentum tensor doesn't have to be symmetric, we change it so that it agrees with what Einstein tells us it should be. So you do actually make changes to it so that it's consistent with general relativity, and you'll get something that's called like the Belafonte energy momentum tensor. So there are a lot of connections to GR, and it gives us a lot of insight into what you can expect the relations to be. Also for like the uniqueness of the energy momentum tensor, because you might say, as long as to the energy momentum tensor, you can add anything that's four-dimensionally divergenceless to it, and you'll get the same conservation equations. But then it's like, if you can add that stuff to it, then it's supposed to be a measurable quantity. How can you define? That sounds ambiguous. Like if you can keep adding stuff to it. So what people have done, like, is they've calculated in certain models what the energy momentum tensor needs to be if you allow your particles to weakly couple to gravity. So it's not exactly quantum gravity per se, but you do introduce things like the Ricci scalar to see like how do you render these Green's functions finite to certain orders in perturbation theory. So there is some overlap, but I'm not out there talking about like quantum gravity and stuff like that.
Right. I see. But it's still like some sort of connection. I think that's pretty cool. There is like where do you see this field of research taking you, like as far as like future projects? Have you thought about future projects, things that you want to know more in depth? Like, is there an overarching goal to be understood with this, like understanding this, the D term and the, how it, tells us about the proton? Yeah.
I mean, the real thing is we don't understand how stuff is distributed inside of the proton. And
oh, okay.
The way that I like to think about it is, when it's like, why is the theory of the nuclear interactions important? Why, like, if we don't really know where it's headed necessarily? Well, if you go back to like 1860s, when you had the periodic table first being given, there was really no explanation for why the elements behaved the way that they did. And it wasn't until like 1920s when Schrodinger has this equation where it starts to make these predictions. It doesn't only explain why these elements behave the way that they do and are arranged the way that they are, but it also makes predictions that you didn't see in the first place. Like, you have these seemingly benign elements like silicon,
right,
that have these very interesting properties and lead to this whole branch of semiconductor physics. And then you take it not even 100 years after the periodic table, and you've got transistors, you've got technology that's unrecognizable from when we first started cataloging this stuff.
Yeah.
But so the way that I like to think about it is the standard model is just the next version of the periodic table. Now we know things like protons and neutrons are not fundamental particles, they have structure. And nowadays, since we have a theory of the electron, you have non-relativistic and relativistic, and we know the material science now, so you can talk about how do we manipulate the charges that go through this material. In the same way, I think eventually we'll get to a point where we're manipulating quarks and gluons in a proton in the same way that we send electrons through a semiconductor. We need to understand how the pieces fit together first before do that. So things like how does the proton get its spin? How is pressure distributed? How are the quarks spatially distributed? This stuff has to be fleshed out before we can start working from the nanometer scale to the Fermi level. So 100,000 times smaller. So
that's cool though. As I mean, like I'm hugely fascinated by like trying to understand more fundamental scales. I think that's awesome and like a worthwhile goal for sure. That's very cool. Now, question: and this is a question that my advisor posed to me, and I thought that it was kind of an interesting and very like deep question, because like I had this kind of mindset where I changed from wanting to solve like a giant problem and just wanting to be an expert in something and contribute to the field, because to me that feels more like what science is about, instead of just solving grandiose problems and being famous like Einstein. So if you had to say, like, if I were to ask you what is the one problem or topic, but problem I think seems more fitting, that is unsolved that you would like to be like an expert in, what would it be?
One of my favorite unsolved problems in nuclear physics, it's called the proton spin puzzle. So you have this cartoon picture in our heads. So the proton isn't elementary, it's made up of quarks and stuff. And the way that we're first introduced to it is the proton has spin 1/2, and it has what's called 3 valence quarks, 2 up quarks and a down quark. So you say, okay, how do you get a half from that? Well, the up quarks have spin, if it's pointing up, then it's 1/2 plus 1/2, and then minus 1/2 from the down quark. So you say that's how the proton gets its total spin of 1/2 when you add the spin like vectors. And it's like the most intuitive picture of this stuff, but it's completely wrong. If you right now we're starting to get a handle on how the quarks, the valence quarks, contribute to the total spin of the proton. And initially you think it's all of it. You think the quarks give all of the spin to the proton. That's where they get their spin from. Turns out it's only like 25% of the total spin comes from the valence quarks. The rest of it comes from the fact that because of the binding energy of the proton, some of that can be borrowed, and you can get, gluons being exchanged, and you can get quark anti-quark pairs popping in and out. Those are called C quarks. And all of these things not only carry spin, but they can carry orbital angular momentum relative to the center of momentum, I suppose. So it turns out that the proton gets its spin from the spin of the quarks, the spin of the gluons, and the orbital angular momentum as well. But we don't know. Now we kind of know how the quarks contribute to it for the spin part, but we don't know how the other stuff is divided up.
Sure.
And accessing that information both experimentally and theoretically, we don't really know yet. That's
Sure.
why it's called the proton spin puzzle. So I think it would be pretty cool to get a hand on that.
Cool. That's a great answer. Love it. I do want to pick your brain just a minute on YouTube before we move on to the Q&A. And
Sure.
we'll be taking a quick, probably a quick 5-minute break before the Q&A. So if you are just joining us today, my guest is Andrew Dotson. Many of you know him from YouTube as the Tensor Boy, level 41 now. I don't even know. You've been gaining so much experience lately. But yeah, so we will be doing a Q&A in a short time. If you do have a question for Andrew, it looks like we're at 15. I'll probably cap it around. It's just !ask and followed by your question. I will probably cap the queue probably around 25, and we will bust through some of those questions pretty quickly. And but yeah, so Andrew, if you would like to know more about Andrew, type !Andrew, and that will tell you about Andrew. So really quick though, I did want to pick your brain a bit about YouTube.
Sure.
So I asked you earlier, what was your biggest surprise about graduate school? And now I want to kind of know, like, when you started your YouTube channel, you probably had some expectations, but what was the biggest surprise from your time on YouTube so far?
I don't know. When I started it, I kind of thought it would mostly be amongst like friends, and it would be a fun thing to record and to reflect back with like SPS and do things with them. I wasn't really sure that it would gain any traction because I had no interest in making it appeal to everybody. I don't really hold back too much as far as like technical detail goes, and so it's surprising, and I'm very lucky that anyone even cares to watch this stuff in the first place. But I guess the biggest surprise is that there's a market for physics-based comedy. Like that I can make a skit video talking about not just like, oh, a neutron walks into the bar, bartender says for you no charge, but to actually do like really like reaching jokes that people find are funny sometimes. I'm like, that's insane that people watch this stuff. I mean, it's stuff that I would look up, I think, as well, but it's cool to know that there's a market for that.
It's fun because like the best time for people to want to learn is when they're having a good time and they're laughing, and like, like that's, and I think that's like an element that you bring to YouTube is just this ability to like let people let their guards down about professors, about TAs, about exams, about expectations, and then laugh about it, and then everybody's engaged, and then you're also just like, here's a whole series to learn about tensors. So now you have someone who goes in knowing that like this is done by someone who's realistic, who's down to earth, who's like, here to have a good time, and then people are open to learning, and I think that's an excellent thing. Yeah, very exciting. Well, I am kind of curious about what is your least favorite video, or you can answer one or the other. What's your least favorite or your most favorite video? You can answer both or the other one or the other.
My least favorite is probably the physics professors be like, and that's the one that got the most attention. I don't think the jokes are very good. I thought of the idea, I wrote the jokes, I recorded it, and I edited it all in the same day. It was so haphazardly thrown together, and it's like that's the one that people get like their first impression of my videos from. Like, one of my favorite ones though I like the doctor, like what if Dr. House was a physicist, and I do
Oh
the
yeah.
one where it's like I'm Dr. Theo Ree, like the theoretical physicist going into wild to try to survive. I like the really stupid ones.
Yeah, the one to survive is definitely a good one. Yeah, even in chat we have people who are commenting on the professors being their favorite. That's hilarious. Uh, do you have a favorite memory that you created in this like journey of your YouTube creator like experience, like either going to like a place for YouTube, like a concert or a venue, or not a concert, a conference or a venue, or like a or just like even just like having one of those days where you like made a video and it just absolutely had a blast with it, and you'll always remember it.
Man, the vlogs where people are so down to be part of it are always my favorite. It's the awkwardest thing to do a vlog when it's just me. That's why I haven't really done many of them throughout COVID, especially because I'm just in the same spot. It's hard to make an entertaining video like that. But the ones where people like being part of it are definitely part of my favorites. Uh, the most memorable for sure for me was when John from Epic Math Time, he made this like surprise
Oh
congratulations video
yeah.
when I crossed 100,000 subscribers, and he got my mom to be part of it too, and that just meant the world to me. I was so surprised because there were like all of these other people who make YouTube videos who like I looked up to going into it, saying congratulations and stuff. I was definitely at a loss for words for that. That was very special.
That's super cool. Yeah, that was a good video too. Very cool. Great answers. That's exciting. Very, very cool answers. I think at this point we're gonna take a quick break. We will take about 5. And this is a good time to ask your questions. If you would like to ask a question, again, here's the instructions. It is type !ask followed by a space and then the question. Feel free to ask a question to Andrew over the next few minutes, and we will resume the Q&A in just a second. I don't know that. I guess we'll go here. We will be right back. And we are back. Hello, everybody. Hello. Asking a lot of good questions in chat. I don't know. It does seem like it missed a little bit of questions. I think we're going to... I don't know why it missed that one. Let me repost that so I can grab that. Okay. Let's see where we're at. I think we might be closing down the queue now. Maybe we got time for one more question. So if you would like, Airsofter, I think so. Yeah, you're number 2. And actually, the first one's by Tyrion, so technically you're number 1. So here we go. Let me start right down the line, and then we'll see how far we get through these questions. We might go a little bit faster towards the end, but let's just start off the festivities. If you are just joining us now, my guest tonight is Andrew Dotson, YouTube creator, physics PhD student, the man, the myth, the legend. We are now into the session where we're going to sort of chill out a little bit. We each got our respective beverages, and we're going to have some question and answer time. And then after that, we're going to be playing a little bit of a drinking game. And you're all welcome to play along with us. Actually, you'll have to play along with us at some point, but either way, we'll get to it when we get to it. But for now, let's do some Q&A stuff. First question is from Tyrion. Tyrion 1803 says, not a question, just wanted to say I still hate you. That's actually towards me. So,
Thank God.
no, it's pretty common. I love you too, Tyrion, and I'm glad you're here. Thank you for doing such a good job. Anyways, real question time. The first one up is Airsofters 4692. How was the GR course, Andrew? And did you get a chance to look at Tong's GR notes?
Tong has QFT notes, don't they?
Tong is famous for his QFT. Well, he's
GR
famous for a
ones.
lot of reasons, but his QFT notes are famous as well as like a great resource. But I don't know too much about his GR notes.
Yeah, me neither. GR was a lot of fun. I'm not a huge fan of Hartle's book, which is what we used in the course. Like, I understand if it's your first exposure to GR, I think it's invaluable. It's probably the best way for that to be structured. But being that I really like things to be approached in the language of tensors, like as soon as possible, because that's how I've learned to think about that stuff. I didn't like how long it took for it to get to that stuff, but since I learned it informally first, it was a really cool to kind of put that to the test and see if I did know, how much I really knew and how much I didn't. And there was a lot of stuff that I didn't know, so it wasn't just redundant information. So that was pretty cool. I also had the best professor teaching it, which was cool.
Awesome. Next up is Tropical Geek, who says, I do not know Andrew, I think. What does he do? Well, hopefully after our conversation, Tropical, you have a better idea of who Andrew is and the things that he's excited about and the things that he's doing. But yeah, you're welcome. You're more than welcome to ask more questions if you would like to know more about Andrew. But yeah, I'm hoping that the conversation we had up till this point is a good basis for who Andrew is. Do you have anything you want to tell people that we haven't already talked about that is that defines you?
I mean, if I feel bad if their first exposure was me just rambling about the D term, so that's probably pretty boring. But no, I mean, yeah, that I think sums it up.
Awesome. And this question, I forget who asked this question. I saw it, so I put it in queue. Because it didn't go naturally. So whoever asked this question, I apologize, but your question is being answered now. Is Andrew finally a doctor?
No.
And finally is a weird
2 years or so.
Finally is a weird term for someone who's only been in graduate school for 3 years. It's not like, I mean, pretty much everybody who's in graduate school for 3 years is still not a doctor.
I mean, if you saw me going into grad school and then me, several months into COVID, you would have been like, wow, he must have been there for years. As he left, he looks horrible. Oh my God. Like, I understand the like the scraggly beard, horrible haircut, and weight gain. You're like, oh shit, how long have you been there for?
So the next question is from Marilyn. Do you still hit the gym? Or are you running now? Or
so I haven't gone to the gym recently, just because I was kind of paranoid going there with, for obvious reasons. But yeah, we got our little weights and we've been going on hikes and stuff lately. So I'm finally getting exercise again. Someone pointed out in one of my videos, like a while back, months and months ago, when I shaved my beard, they're like, wow, you gained weight. And I was like, wait, holy shit, I have. So that was like, okay, let's not keep doing that.
So ridiculous.
Yeah, definitely getting my exercise in again, finally.
I'm wondering why the queue is not picking up some people's questions. Make sure that when you do write a question that there's no space before ask too. The exclamation mark needs to be the first character. For some reason it doesn't pick it up otherwise. So speaking of this, Marwan asks, how long is a PhD?
I think it can vary anywhere between like 4 years. I think the average is somewhere between 5 and 6 years for physics anyways. What do you think?
The APS ones I saw put between 6 and 7 as like a rough average. Like 6 and 7 is the highest percentage of finishing your PhD from a bachelor's. So this is particularly in the States. It's 6 to 7 years fresh out of your bachelor's school. Puts the highest. 5 is very, very close behind those. There was a little bit of shifting though, because I think I saw like a more recent one where 5 was up a little bit higher than 7. So it's somewhere between the 5, 6, and 7 range is when you'll be expected to be done, roughly, I would say. But that's where that's at. So Terowin asks, thoughts on Sabine Hassenfelder?
Thoughts on what?
Sabine Hassenfelder.
Oh, she makes those videos where my first thought was like, oh, she talks shit about things, right? But no, I haven't watched too much of her stuff, but I know that she's been pretty critical about like particle physics in the past, but I think a lot of it is kind of justified. Like you see a blip in a cross section and it's like new particle goes backwards in time and communicates telepathy. Like that's the stuff that's publicized. So I think there needs to be someone popular who within science who gives like the criticism as well.
A loud critical voice is definitely good to have to some extent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So
but I haven't seen much of her stuff though.
Yeah, I haven't watched much of her YouTube content. I don't know. I just haven't seen much of it. Puzzle Gamer asks, I'm wondering why this isn't a problem, or at least one that I've heard before. If particles are in superposition until detected, then how did in the early universe particles come to be? What would have been the first detector?
That's a pretty cool question.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose things are always interacting, especially in the early universe. I don't know if the concept of a free particle makes much sense then. So in that sense, I don't know. Yeah, I imagine that's the thing that would make it quote unquote decide, but I haven't really thought about that before. That's a pretty cool question.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, it basically is asking, like, what's the first measurement? You know, what's the first measurement of, like, that collapses a wave function? And I wouldn't have any idea. I mean, like, you could talk about interactions, but in quantum field theory, they don't really. I guess, do they collapse wave functions? Interactions in quantum field theory? Like, if you find, I mean, the probability amplitudes of scattering, so isn't that the same thing in some extent?
I mean, what I'm thinking of is like interactions defining what's a virtual particle and what's a real particle.
Right.
So that's what I mean by interacting, is you do have an outgoing state that is defined.
Right.
But you also assume, like when you calculate that stuff, you do assume that outgoing state is a free particle. Right, when you calculate an S matrix element, the asymptotic states are free particle states. I don't know, so maybe it depends how far back you go.
Yeah.
It's important to make the distinction between what things are and how we describe them. So yeah, we describe the particles as a superposition of states, but that's a intermediate step to doing a calculation to something that's actually measurable. I don't know how helpful it is to try to make the distinction, but that's a very cool question though.
Agreed. Justin asked, what are the major research directions driving problems in nuclear physics? All I imagine is understanding confinement, but I bet it goes a lot deeper.
So could you repeat that? So they're saying what are the big questions?
Yeah, what are the driving problems in nuclear physics?
So I've already went on about the spin stuff. Confinement is big. I wouldn't call it necessarily a problem. That's something that we understand happens. The same as like asymptotic freedom. What it comes down to is the coupling constant. So coupling constants tell you how strong the interaction is. So whether there's one for E and M, there's one for the strong nuclear force, and so on. And it just turns out that constant isn't actually constant. It depends on the scale of the experiment. How much of nature reveals itself depends on how deep you're probing the particle.
Yeah.
So on one end of the spectrum, you get asymptotic freedom, which means if you think about it, you have like your three quarks, so to speak, and if you're probing it at very high energies, well, one, there's time dilation within the target as well, and two, you're hitting it at such high energies to where you're probing one of the targets before it's had time to interact with any of the ones around it. So if the interactions can be treated as very small, then in that high energy regime, you can do perturbation theory. On the other side of the spectrum, at low energy scales, you can't neglect those interactions, and you get, confinement, where, you can't neglect those contributions anymore. And it also corresponds to the fact that you can't have like a free quark. You can't pull a quark outside of the proton and just hold it by itself. So that's something that I think is understood, that it happens, but I guess you can always ask why things happen. I wouldn't have an answer for you. But I think the big questions in nuclear physics right now still just have to do with hadron structure. Hadron just being particles that are made up of quarks.
Okay.
Um,
Like
why is it?
like
Go ahead.
tetraquarks and stuff?
Yeah, those would be hadrons. So the ones that the canonical examples would be baryons. So those would be like your protons and neutrons, or things that are made up of like 3 quarks, 3 valence quarks, and then your mesons, which are quark-antiquark pairs. So like the pion, as an example. But then you can have more exotic hadrons, like your pentaquarks, tetraquarks. There's not really a limit to what kind of exotic hadrons you could have, but those ones, the probability of those ones being produced are just, I guess, heavily suppressed.
I see.
So I think right now it's like a structure problem. It's we're really trying to understand the structure of these particles that are made up of quarks.
That makes sense, though. And yeah, that makes sense. It's cool to know about too. Okay, so next question. Let's see here. So Dan Tickner says, "Do you have heroes outside of science, e.g., sports people who strive their whole careers to become a champion of the discipline?" Good question.
That's a cool question.
Yeah.
I guess the fact that I'm thinking about it so hard means not too much, but I could just be blanking on the spot. I'm not sure. Heroes outside of science. I'm not a huge sports person. So it's probably not going to be. So I don't really look up to athletes. I don't really look up to movie people. I look up. Maybe it is only science people. I'm not sure. I haven't really thought about it. I mean, there's like the supportive people, like your family, who you always like kind of look up to. But outside of that, I'm not really sure. What about you? Do you have one that comes to mind? Maybe that'll jog my memory.
No, I don't watch sports. I'm not too into sports.
I look up to musicians, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe slightly more than sports people. I'm actually terrible at like. I'm actually terrible at like the like pop sci stuff. Like or not pop sci stuff, but like popular. What is? I don't even know what people call it these days. Like popular icons.
Yeah.
Like I just don't know many.
I guess my thing is I'm not big on looking up to someone I don't know. But I do have like. I don't know if I agree with that too much, because that's not who they are, right? Like even the videos that I make necessarily, it's like everything I've ever put on YouTube has been edited and rehearsed and all this stuff, and it's like you can't really conflate that with the person. But I think you can phrase it in the language of like, what do you admire about what certain people have done, right?
Do you have that parasocial relationship thing like haunt you sometimes, where like people just sort of like pretend that you guys are just chill and they just try to start talking to you like everything's chill?
No, that doesn't really happen to me, but yeah, I mean, to go back, I mean, I look up, there's musicians where I'll hear stuff that they do and I'm like, I can't, it's fascinating how little I can put my mind into theirs and see how they got that piece of work out. It's just, so I think the biggest only other example would be musicians. Like, I've always enjoyed like blues music, and it's listening to that kind of stuff.
Cool. Yeah. Very cool.
I was wearing a Beale Street shirt recently before I sweated through it because it's over 100 degrees. Yeah, I was wearing like that Memphis Beale Street. I went there and I went to one of their BB King clubs where they just played blues music all night. That was awesome.
Nice. Very cool. Sorenstrom asks, why is there more matter than antimatter? I'm a first-year physics major.
Oh, that's an easy question. I don't know. I don't know if anyone knows, right? That's one of the big conservation laws in like one of those quantum numbers. Is baryon number. Conservation of baryon number, and at some point it wasn't conserved, right? If you press rewind far enough, at a certain point there was more antimatter, or sorry, there was a divide, like they weren't produced in pairs. And Yeah, I have no, I don't think anyone knows that.
No, no, I don't even know where the status of the problem's at these days. I just know it's a problem. I don't know who's working on it or what they're doing or anything, but it's definitely a problem. So, Swordstrom, maybe you could be on that. Maybe that could be your, that could be the problem that you want to be an expert in, someday. Predator X0557 asks, what is the differential phase space? I'm really confused in scattering right now.
Maybe you'll talk about this when you talk about StatMech, but phase space, like, if you want to calculate the probability if something happens, you have to calculate all of the ways that it can do that, how it can reach that configuration. So that's going to correspond to, well, phase space is just like a plane where on one axis you have like a position dependence, and on the other side you have momentum. So you have all of these different, what you would call available phase space, and typically the more available phase space a scattering process has, the more probable it would be. It's exactly analogous to, like, if you want to say what statistical process is more probable, you have to count the number of microstates that there are. The more microstates that there are, the more likely that thing is to happen. And it's for, if you go to like continuous systems, that sum over the microstates is like replaced with an integral over phase space. So differential phase space would just be before you add it all up.
There you go. Charlie Michael asks, I'm gonna go with Michael. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Asks, how difficult / easy is it to get a job outside of academia with a physics degree? So let's do 2 steps. Let's do both bachelor's and then PhD.
I have a buddy who actually got a job at a lab with a bachelor's degree in physics, and I was like, really? That's pretty cool. And since then, he got, I think, relocated to some other lab, again, with just when I say just, I don't mean like, oh, just a bachelor's, but, you know, with that being the stopping point for right now.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised that he was able to get jobs in like industry that easily. So I think in industry, it's probably a good amount easier. If you want to go into academia, you can't do it without, I think of an example where you can do it without having a PhD though, right? But it is a waiting game. I think when I was talking to some people at JLab, they said that in the hiring process for postdocs, so that's after you do a PhD, they tend to favor applicants who this would be their first postdoc to kind of try it out. So I think there's a bias towards first postdocs. I think that is supposed to be easier, but getting subsequent ones, you know, now they have data. Now they have how you did in the first postdoc before they hire you for another one.
Yeah.
So, but it's not easy from what I've heard.
No.
Have you heard other?
No. I mean, I've come to understand more since I started streaming, and I've come to understand that like the best way to get a job after your bachelor's for physics is to know exactly what you want to do well in advance, then do like internships and like network a bunch and get in it, because you're basically like a engineer that's much more specific, you know, and like that's hard to get like a job if you don't have any internships, if you don't have any research, if you don't have anything like that. Like it's 100% important to be like super active in this stuff. So yeah, that's it's hard to get a job with just a bachelor's degree. And then the PhD, I think is a little bit easier, especially depends on what you do. Like there's jobs that are much more marketable, like quantum computing is very marketable right now. Like certain data jobs are very marketable right now. So things like that.
Yeah.
But it's not straightforward, I don't think, for either of the cases, but it seems to be like significantly less straightforward if you're getting a bachelor, if you're ending at a bachelor's degree.
Yeah, I mean, the one piece of advice that was given to me, I attended this lecture on 2 things. One was preparing resumes for industry jobs or outside of academia, and one was preparing CVs for academia jobs. And for the resume one for outside, they said, if you're a nuclear physicist, condensed matter, whatever, no one cares. No one cares what your title was specifically. You need to sell the skills that you developed in going that route. So if you became really proficient with data analysis, as you probably do with some respect. I mean, everyone nowadays, Python is one of the most popular programming languages to use, especially in data analysis, and every grad student is kind of learning it. So it's like odds are you know how to do fits and you know how to do statistical analysis in some way. So it's like really selling those skills rather than being like, I'm a nuclear physicist. In industry will take you a lot further.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Tropical Geek asks, who are the women doing this research? She's curious about, or Tropical Geek is curious about the women in your field of study, like nuclear physics, maybe even more specific to your own research if you are familiar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's some of the biggest names in nuclear physics are women. So there was this lecture I attended from someone who does research in like gluons and quantum chromodynamics, QCD being theory of the strong force. And her name was Christine Aguilar, I believe, which was kind of funny because it's the Christina Aguilera. But no, she's doing wonderful research in the realm of like non-perturbative methods. So that's pretty booming right now. And then when it comes to other like more perturbative stuff, if you go into like the structure of hadrons, there's one woman, I'm blanking on the last name, but her first name is Simonetta, and she recently put on this conference with my research advisor, and she's the person my advisor goes to for like what's the word, like further discussion and stuff like that. Yeah, so awesome. I think at least in nuclear physics there's some good representation there.
Fantastic. Cosmono asks, what do you think Feynman would think of string theory? It was under my impression he liked string theory.
Well, when did Feynman die?
88.
88? Okay. So he was probably, no, that's after.
It was almost booming at that point. It was before the first revolution, or was it after the first revolution, I think, that he died. I know some of his contemporaries really liked it.
Well, it started out as a theory of the strong force, right? That's what it started trying to describe.
Yeah, the Veneziano model or whatnot, right? Wasn't that like the one that was aimed at solving?
I could be mixing stuff up here, but I think what they were saying was like if you have these really high energy particles inside of the proton that almost have no mass, then they must be moving at the speed of light. But if they're confined, or close to the speed of light, but if they're confined to the size of the proton, then they must be orbiting. And they like found some weird way of describing it if they were attached with like a string, and then there was some relation with like the mass being proportional to the tension in that string, or whatever it was. But I was wondering if that's what Feynman kind of left off seeing. Yeah, I don't know. I also don't know much about string theory. I'm not really the person to talk about it. Like, well, let's see. What didn't he like? He wasn't a fan of renormalization, was he? I think he was like Dirac, where he wasn't a huge.
I think he pushed back on it, but I think he was ultimately okay with it in the end.
Was he?
I think so. I think he understand that it worked. I mean, it was huge for his original idea with QED. Like you needed like Freeman Dyson to come in and be like this. You could do a simple renormalization to fix all of this, and like that was one of the things that like they needed. He was like Dirac. Okay, so Cosmo says he was not a fan. He was like Dirac. Okay, I thought he was a fan of it just because it helped Dyson get like his theory kind of like pieced together a bit. But
well, also, I mean, he's famous for the quote saying like, if you have a theory, it doesn't matter how beautiful it is or how wonderful it is. If it doesn't agree with experiment, it's wrong. Now, I don't know. I don't really know about the stuff that gets publicized, or the people kind of shitting on string theory, saying like the only thing it's predicted is supersymmetry, and every time you look in a certain kinematic region for supersymmetric particles, they up the threshold for where they just must be. Like if you don't find them at this energy, then they must be at the next energy. So that's probably a very limited perspective on it. That's just what I've seen, like people critiquing it for. So I don't know if that's, I'm sure there's more to it, but if his perception was it's made predictions or it doesn't have predictions or whatever it is that don't agree with experiment, I think he'd be like any other physicist where, okay, until I don't know. I don't know if he would.
Give me more. Yeah, maybe.
That's also me talking out of my ass though. Like I said, I don't know string theory. I just know
Sure.
what I've heard. You know.
Of Feynman and whatnot. Yeah, definitely. Interesting point. Noah Royce asks, how could you both not put the ultimate entropy definition of in S tier? So in our tier videos, neither you nor I did. Neither you nor I put put entropy in the S tier. So Noah wants some vindication, I guess.
I mean, I think whatever I put it at, if I put it at A tier, I think it maybe deserves A tier. I don't know, or at least how I think about it, I could see it being 8 just because of how important statistical mechanics is in the first place, and how entropy is like an interface between our classical picture of thermo and statistical picture, right? Because it relates something, entropy, which you can define classically in terms of something that's inherently statistical, the number of microstates. So it's cool, but I also was heavily biased towards what do I use, and I don't know if I didn't rank Navier-Stokes very high either. But if you're a fluid person, that would be
Yeah.
like, there were people who were getting really butthurt about that, right? And it's, I don't know,
Yep.
at the end of the day, I didn't have as much of a connection to it. If it was
Sure.
like a partition function, I bet if it was a partition function, I would have rated it higher, because I'd be like, oh, well, you take the expectation value of the propagator in quantum field theory in imaginary time, something that's this weird notion, and that ends up being a partition function. So you have like this connection between QFT and StatMech. That I probably would have put. I probably still wouldn't have put that S tier though. I don't know.
S tier is reserved. It's special. It's special. George, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Thank you so much for the Prime. Greetings from ABQ. I assume that's Albuquerque, maybe, from NMSU.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Jorge.
Jorge. Okay. I did pronounce it terribly wrong.
I assume it's Jorge.
Anyways, welcome in. Thank you so much for the Prime. I appreciate it. That was me doing my best. I think I might have. Did I miss one? Oh, Terrawin, I think I might have missed one of your questions. I'm very sorry. I think I might have accidentally erased it. So if you if you ask a question and I miss it, please feel free to ask it again.
I'd be interested. Sorry to cut you off, but I'd be interested in why the one person wanted it to be S tier. I wonder what their reasoning for entropy being.
I don't know. Noah's been a member of our community for
that.
a while, and he's in Discord, so you can always just ask him. It's a good discussion place. Mandrew, thank you so much for subscribing for 13 months, over a year of this wonderful content. Thank you so much, Mandrew. I appreciate you being here.
One quick comment.
Yeah.
One quick comment. This whiskey that I'm drinking is the same one that I gave to Jorge. I was like, "Oh, do you like bourbon?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's probably fine." I gave it to him, and he goes, "It's good."
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love whiskey. I'm a whiskey guy. Are you a whiskey guy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that answers a guy doing guy things question, which was what's in your cup. What's the brand name? We'll do that just to finish that. The brand of whiskey.
So this is a whiskey from. I actually, every now and then I'll actually go to Tennessee to Nashville, and I'll pick up some whiskey from their distillery. It's called Corsair, and this is it used to be called Wildfire, but they changed it. But it's like really similar to a Scotch, actually. So it's like a malt. But, so I shouldn't have called it a bourbon. I'm sorry. It's not bourbon.
Let's see here. So Z Vlad says, how can you manage to stay so on track, especially when the context does not really let you do things you love, i.e. physics? So I guess what C Vlad's asking, and if you're in chat, C Vlad, please correct me if I'm wrong, is like how do you stay on track for research when you have things like, when you want to like publish YouTube videos or TA or classwork? Like, how do you still stay on top of your research projects?
Honestly, those days are just bad days, I think. Like, I wish I had a more helpful answer, but if it's a day where I'm spent doing, like in meetings that have nothing to do with research, I get to the end of the day and I'm like, that day sucked. So luckily those are more few and far between at this stage. I think if you're in grad school, you're probably like after your like third year or so, you are doing a lot of research, which is good. But I've also heard from like administrative people at say Jefferson Lab, yeah, it can be very frustrating having to spend so much of your time uh, doing stuff other than research. But the important thing is you can say no sometimes. Like if you can't be part of it, like you can say no where you can't, you don't. But I also don't think any grad student is a stranger to working on the weekends, you know.
True.
So if you factor that in as well, you can kind of get by. Like some days suck because you feel like you weren't very productive with your research, and the best thing I can say is like have a game plan for tomorrow, and that'll make you feel a little bit better. It makes me feel better if I'm like, this is exactly what I'm going to tackle tomorrow.
Mapping out stuff helps a lot, in my opinion. Like I actually like physically write stuff down. It helps. So Enceladus Rising asks, hey Andrew, how much free time, if any, do you have now, and how much time did you have during your first 2 years of graduate school? Thanks. So compare the first 2 years to your third year as far as free time goes.
You already know the answer. you were in the trenches. No, first 2 years suck. They do. They really just do. I'm not trying to discourage people from it, but that's a lot of material that you have to get in there in a very small amount of time, and you can't get away with that. Like, I guess this subject is just a weak point now. No, because after the classes are done, you have a qualifying exam.
Yeah.
And it's all fair game, and it's like put in the time now, put in the time there, or when you're studying, but there's a conservation of work and energy there. So first 2 years, they're brutal. They like, if you accept that and you just kind of, you communicate with your professors about, people have bad weeks, people have other priorities. You're not in grad school to be a professional class taker. You're there to learn how to be a researcher. And I think people, like, if you communicate with your professors, you can make the first couple of years better, but it's night and day. Once you're done with your core classes, so maybe this is reassuring that it does get better if you're out there experiencing this right now. It's so much better. Like last semester, I still took a class, but in general relativity, but like it's a non-comparison. I had a lot more free time. I occupied that free time, right? I was more active in like our physics grad student association or organization. I made more videos, so I don't do well with having too much free time. I find a way to spend it. What about you? Would you say yours is similar?
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of free time for a long time.
Oh yeah, you have
I have a family. Every moment of my free time is usually spent with them, and then like some moments that aren't free, I still spent with them just because it's worth it. And then like you
I don't get how you did it.
It's a lot.
Hats off.
But it's worth it. If anybody is interested, I have a little bit of a backstory behind myself. I'll put in chat right now to read after this is done. But it's a bit of I went through a lot of rough time in my life that ultimately was like I was forced to make a decision, either like continue living miserable and be a bad parent, bad father, son, brother, husband, or to like, make a big change. So I made the big change, and this is the consequence of that. And so far, so good. But so read that if you'd like, but that's for a different time. For now, let's keep busting through these questions. We only have a couple left. And then we'll have some fun with some games. But CryoG has been a member of the community for a long time. Asks, what is the extent of the coding you do? Language, frameworks, software?
My stuff is pretty minimal. I mean, I use Python. That's my tool of choice. A lot of what I do is calculating Feynman diagrams numerically. So it just amounts to writing little subroutines that can do these momentum integrals in a way that doesn't take 10 years. So
Nice.
a lot of the stuff is My stuff, thankfully, I like it, is still largely pen and paper. Like you could, I guess, do this stuff by hand, but it's nicer to be able to, just write a code to do it for you. So my stuff is still, it's not, I'm not like Jorge in the comments where he's, good at like parallelization and all this data analysis stuff. That's not really me. Doing fits and stuff. So there's this really important concept in nuclear physics called factorization, where you can split the cross section into something that you can calculate in perturbation theory, convoluted with something that can't be.
Oh, okay.
So usually what you do is you do the numerical calculation of the thing in perturbation theory, or by hand if you can, and then you can do a fit to do the non-perturbative thing with data. So, so some of what I do amounts to doing various fits and stuff as well.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll use Python, Mathematica. If I have to read other nuclear physicists' code, that's usually in Fortran, but I stay away if I can.
Cool. High Altitude Churekov says, both. So I assume this is for both of us. What are your backgrounds in terms of birthplace and academic achievements of your family? How representative do you feel your generation of physicists as far as you've experienced them? That's a good question.
What was the last part? Again?
Like how representative do you feel of your generation of physicists as far as you've experienced them? So like our peers, how do I feel like our peers have stacked up against other generations of physicists?
I'll let you go first.
Okay, so my background is my mom had some college, dad had no college. My grandparents have all sorts of colleges, all sorts of, like, one of my grandpas has a PhD, my grandmother has a master's. Lots of education in my grandparents, but not so much but not the higher education of my parents, I should say. Nobody's into sciences. It was all different things. Computer science, I guess my grandma's into computer science, but other than that, that's kind of like the extent of my family. Like, I was born and raised around here where I go to school at Binghamton University. Moved away for a few years, but mostly was here. And that's it. Like, nothing extraordinarily as far as, like, scientists go in my family. I feel like our generation of physicists have a unique perspective in that, like, I hope that we are the generation that sort of, like, helps. I hope we're the generation that helps the next generation. I feel like that never really happened so much. Like, I feel like the generation that's helping us now is only, like, half committed to that. Like, where there's a lot of people who are willing to help. And I've been blessed and lucky to have really great advisors and project leaders. But I know that there's a significant amount of people who don't, because I don't feel like I feel like there's a large amount of the generation above us who don't care about our generation, who care about solving things and what accomplishments they can have. And I've seen that. I've experienced that in my friends and my colleagues. So I hope that we're a generation that's more focused on helping the next generation, and that we're like that we're the generation that, like, empowers the next generation to make big breakthroughs, because I don't feel like my generation has overall will have the tools passed down. Like I said, I feel like I'm lucky, and I'm hoping that people who are lucky like me and more talented than me will make these great breakthroughs. But I don't, like I said, that's what I hope for my generation, is that we're the generation that empowers the next generation to do great things. That's what I hope, because I don't think that that's going to be, I don't see that happening right now as a broad scheme. But okay, so there's my answer. Long and boring. Now yours. Go ahead.
No, I'm totally going to build off of what you said in a minute, but I guess to address the first part. So my mom doesn't have a science background. I think both have like a little bit of college experience. And then my dad was in the Navy, where he was a sonar technician. So he has a minor background in engineering in a sense. So yeah, that's, do with that what you will. But to kind of go off of what you were saying about, like, kind of shoulder of giants type thing, I don't know. I think it's looking pretty good, because if you look at if you can attend colloquia for new faculty hires within universities, it seems like they're really emphasizing not just doing outstanding research, but broader impact and outreach. So I think that it's being emphasized more than it has been in the past. So when I attend these kinds of lectures from professors, they're like, they'll talk a bit about the research, but then they'll also talk about how proactive they're being within the community, whether that's like paying it forward to students and like learn in these opportunities. Um, Also, our generation, everything's online and communication is
Yeah,
online. Getting
true.
information out is online. And there are programs, to give like a bit of a shameless plug to one of my old institutions at Old Dominion University. They do this program where they do this summer school thing that's completely free, where they like really quality lectures on various topics in physics and other areas of STEM, that's just made available to make science accessible to people who otherwise wouldn't really have those opportunities. And they're now even trying to make it so that they're making more programs for people who don't have the luxury of like, oh, let me take a summer off to go shadow someone for free, or like, do these actual programs for underprivileged people. So I think the future is looking pretty good for us like when it's time for us to hand the torch down, or to pass the torch,
Yeah, I sure hope so. I think so too. I do. Very exciting stuff in the works. Okay, so we're gonna move into a bit of a fast-paced round. I'm gonna field some questions for you, and then we're gonna hit one big one at the end. So I did close the queue. So if you oh, okay, cool. Excellent, high altitude. So I did close the queue, but if you would like to, yeah, so I guess we'll end up with this, and then Mandry will have the last question, but let's do, I think we have 8 more then, so we'll go quickly. NC, Non-Dairy Neutrino, says, Andrew, you've mentioned you like doing things computationally. Do you see yourself would you consider yourself a computational physicist? So do you see yourself that? Do you want to be that? That was fast.
No, I don't, but I have a big appreciation for the people who do have the kind of mind of like really understanding how the clusters work and the supercomputers work. That's not me. I don't really have that big of an interest in it. I just like writing little scripts to make my life easier.
I have much more of an appreciation for computational physicists and experimental physicists, like how much dedication and like how much work it goes into their research is fantastic to see. Very, very unique breed of people who can like sit there and rummage through code for errors. It would drive me absolutely nuts. And then at the end result have a great result show through, that's really cool. I don't remember who asked this question, but I grabbed it from chat from someone. So real quick, what are your thoughts on philosophy of science and how much does it affect your PhD?
I'm not quite sure what's meant by that. I mean,
do you philosophize?
Like liberties with the interpretation there. I mean, this is probably not what the question means, but I've never like tackled a physics problem and be like, man, if only I took a class that assigned me to read Descartes' Meditations or something like that. Like that would have made this much easier. Like philosophy of science. I don't know. Like ethics, maybe?
I think it's more about interpretation. Like, for example, like how do you interpret things like the wave function to mean? Like what do you think about when you think like, we talked a little bit earlier, like when you're like, you said like this is a stepping stone to get the answer. It's just a mathematical stepping stone. It's not anything physical. Like how do you think like you should? How do you feel like? Is there ever a time where you're sitting there thinking about the interpretation of a gluon or of a quark? Like we talked a little bit about that yesterday, you and I, about like how gluons. I have no physical interpretation for gluons, and it drives me up a wall. So that would be more of the philosophy that I would be like thinking that they meant. Like what is the philosophy? What is the importance of having something that you'll never be able to interact with, like a gluon or a single quark?
You can actually, okay, I'm glad you expanded on that, because that reminds me of something. Like if you look in if you look in the particle data group, which has the list of like all of the particles and their various quantum numbers, it's like some of these last, what they are is their resonances, right? They're a little peak in a cross section. That means we counted a lot more of certain particles at this energy, which corresponds to the mass energy of a particle we're trying to find. And it's like if that particle only exists for 10 to the minus 24 seconds, does it really make sense? Like, does it mean anything to call it a particle or a resonance? So in that sense, it's like, shut up and calculate. I don't care.
So the truth. That's how he feels. No, I'm just kidding. Cool, but great answer. Yeah, I have moments where I'm very interested in this stuff, and then moments where I'm just like, I don't care. I just want to have something I can sink my teeth into. But yeah, excellent answer. Justin says, what is the most profound, mind-blowing fact you have about physics for high school, undergrad, or graduate students? So hit us with one. Hit us with one mind-blowing fact that if you could just tell the world something about physics that you find absolutely wild, what would it be?
We describe, I don't know, antimatter particles literally as regular matter particles traveling backwards in time to do a calculation, and it works. I think that's off the top of my head. That's
pretty wild. That's a good one. That's a really good one. I love that one. Yeah. So, you say it again, just so that everyone can hear it nice and clearly.
We describe antimatter particles in a Feynman diagram as a regular particle traveling backwards in time, and that's awesome. Literally what you do to do the calculation. And it's a description, right? Awesome. It goes back to there's a difference between what things are and how we describe them.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So we have a couple. I saw Luke Kane. I'm gonna get to yours in just a second, Luke Kane. I did see it and I did want to hit it. But let's do. I got one more for here. Then we'll hit Luke Kane. We got a couple more. So what's on your whiteboard, Andrew?
What is on my whiteboard? I'm calculating GPDs, generalized parton distributions, in a certain model, a certain spectator model in quantum field theory. So those GPDs give you access to how quarks and stuff are distributed spatially inside of the proton, as well as give you access to the D without having to scatter gravitons. So that's
nice.
Part of it. That's like that part's just a joke. But the other stuff is a calculation.
Nice. I think it's very fitting that you have both calculations and jokes on your whiteboard at the same time. Fantastic. Okay, so Lucane Destroyer asks, how did you enjoy taking electricity and magnetism? How about, let's ask this. How did you enjoy Griffiths? And then how did you enjoy Jackson?
Griffiths is hands down, in my opinion, the best undergraduate book ever written. You're not going to go to that to learn classical mechanics, right. But for like E&M, I think it's the perfect book. He also has a book on quantum mechanics, which I don't share the same sentiment about. But anyways,
sure.
I loved undergraduate E&M. I hated magnetism though when I was learning it. Magnetism, and I didn't like material like in medium.
Yeah.
And then in grad school, I got a much deeper appreciation for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Graduate E&M is so hard, but it's fascinating.
Cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah,
the math.
I actually enjoyed it a little bit more. I'm not gonna lie. I actually kind of like Jackson a little bit more than Griffiths. I felt like I had something to really stick my teeth into, like mathematically, where I felt Griffiths was like a lot of kind of like casually explaining it, and then like you had to extrapolate a bunch of physics out. I also think it was my timing, because I came back to school, like started up late, as like a 28-year-old, came back, and that was like one of my first introductions to like physics again, was Griffiths E&M, and I felt like I knew how to do all the math and had literally zero idea how to set it up. And I felt with Griffiths, like that was the key, is like you had to understand how to set up E&M, because I had like a really weak E&M an introductory physics class, so I felt like I was way behind. Whereas Jackson, I felt like you kind of had like this master equation thing that you dealt with when you were wanting to do with like Green's functions and all that stuff, and you just like everything was sort of built into that one equation, and it was like, how many different ways can we do things with this? And I loved it.
The reason, sorry, I know I'm taking a while, but like the reason you kind of just brought it up. Yeah, page 1 of Jackson is Green's functions, which if you had a math methods course means you've probably learned Green's functions, at least in grad school. But what pissed me off to no end was it was like method of Green's functions for doing these problems. It was like, okay, the way we're going to solve it is by guessing the Green's function.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't like you exploit the geometry and you compare it to something that you've solved before, and then you say, so this Green's function must be that one plus a thing. And I was like, this just doesn't seem very. It's like when you see like an ansatz for the first time in differential equations, and you're like, oh, okay, so we're solving this by knowing the answer.
Yep.
You know, that was frustrating to me.
Yep, I agree. It doesn't sit well with you sometimes. Okay, so Luna
The dispersion stuff was cool.
Yeah, the dispersion stuff was pretty cool. I really liked the way that Jackson presented images too. Like I felt like it might have been very similar to Griffiths, but I didn't get it with Griffiths. I got it with Jackson. But okay, so Luna asks, do you think category theory will start to play more of a role in physics as it has in math? I've seen some attempts to use higher order categories as it applies to QM or unified theories. Think this might happen, or are there other avenues? And I cut some of it off. Are there other avenues people are taking, or are these attempts fruitless in your opinion?
I don't know category theory. Can you give
me
either?
I don't know either. Okay. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
I can. Yeah. Okay. So I can't say anything about what you asked, but I can say there are other things like group theory which are immensely important, and things like particle physics.
Good.
Is that related to? This is gonna be a fucking meme now. Is math related to science? Is group theory related to category theory? Yeah, I'm sorry. I really
to science. I love it. One thing you could do is if you have a question that we don't get to answer, or you have a question that we don't know the answer to, like anything to do with category theory, then you can always hop in the Discord. There are people who love topics like this. We have some in chat right now that I know who know things about category theory who would love to answer your questions. The Discord is an excellent place to go and join and talk, have conversations, get questions asked, answered, all the good stuff. Last question, Mr. Dotson, in our Q&A comes from longtime user viewer Mandry Khan says, what is the most important question to be solved or understood in physics this very day?
What is the most important question to be solved?
In your opinion, what is the most important question?
It's weird. You go into physics. You go into physics thinking quantum gravity is the coolest question ever. Then you get farther in physics and there's a stigma against talking about it, right? Yeah. I'm in the minority that still thinks that is the most fascinating question ever. And arguably just as cool question is, why should gravity have to have a quantum field theory? Other than it would be really cool if it did.
I'm right with you. I agree. I think it is very, and I think the reason it's a stigma is because people don't want you to talk about things like string theory or loop quantum gravity or any of these like kind of topics that are like, are the topics that are like the bad ones. You know what I mean? Like it's so bad, like don't talk about it. It's bad. But like I agree with you. I think quantum gravity is one of the biggest things. I do think that there's some smaller problems to go along the way. Namely, what we talked about before about how I'm very fascinated with time. I think time is the problem that needs to be solved first. Like it's a stepping stone to understanding quantum gravity.
What do you mean by that?
What is
the problem of time?
So there's basically the two ways that we understand time. There's the flow of time, and then there's the coordinate time. And like we don't have a genuine way to describe the two of them together. So there's the flow of time, And people hate, like some people absolutely hate the phrase flow of time because they don't think time flows. They think it's just a coordinate system and that's that. Some people hate the coordinate system thing because they don't think it does justice to the, the flow of time. But the fact that entropy is always increasing, that, processes exist in nature that are not reversible, that are reversible on pencil and paper. And it's like the idea that like we see all these things happen. Like we can write the laws, the physics laws that describe a glass, like a dropped wine glass reforming, after it, like, you could write the laws that would reverse, all of those processes and put the glass back together, like to some level of lattice of material sciences and structures. Like you can write all those equations, but the fact is you'll never ever see it. You'll never see something happen like so obviously back. It's even comical to like see a video of a person having a glass break, unbreak into their hand, because it's so intuitively false in your mind that a glass could recombine. So there's that structure where like entropy continues to increase, like disorder continues to happen, processes continue to like disperse information out, and then there's the then in general relativity, special relativity, and quantum field theory, we have this other idea that time is just a coordinate, where things need to be reversible, where things need to happen like this. It's like where we have this flexible coordinate system that that you can just like do what you want with it. And it's such a weird dynamic to say, okay, how do we relate? And this is totally a philosophy question, but it's like, how do you relate that inability to undo processes to the familiar coordinates where we write all our laws in? And that's the question.
Well, for both of those though, it's a way of parameterizing how something can change, right? In both of those cases you just mentioned, like, yeah, in the latter context, it's a coordinate, but when you put something in that coordinate system, you're still saying that thing can change relative to those coordinate systems. So I don't know if I'm exactly following.
So does it make more so the change thing? So Luna, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. So if you got a gifted sub from Luna, please say thank you. And I do appreciate it very much, Luna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luna.
The like it's okay, so how do we describe this then? Like the fact that like what would you consider to be a good clock? Like the average decay of a piece of like radiation, or like the vibrations in like a crystal structure. Like these are all things that we call clocks, right? And
so, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So the processes is how we talk about this coordinate, right? We talk about the process of either a vibration or of a decay or of something, as a step in time, a time step, but at the same time, like those are not reversible in reality, but they are reversible as a coordinate.
So what I think of is like, I mean, you can get a gyroscope and you can define directions in
Right.
space.
Right.
And then you can have two objects moving relative to each other. And if you have a sense of directions from the gyroscope and you have things moving relative, then that uniquely defines a time in that frame. And then you follow, at least in special relativity, you follow the rules of how to relate things in different frames. And I don't see any ambiguity there. So
Well,
is your point like how do you uniquely define it,
or how about more like
why does it have a preference?
more of a physical? Yeah, why does it have a preference? More of a physical thing, like how like what would be necessary to make your cells stop aging or reverse aging?
Cellular apoptosis.
Is that real?
That's where like you have the DNA, and then
Uh-huh.
at the end caps there's like redundant DNA, and
Okay.
as the cells divide, it like slices further into it, into
Okay.
the redundant DNA, and then there becomes a point where if it does it anymore, you'll start messing with with needed DNA. So before it gets to that point, for some reason the cell knows to kill itself, because if it starts dividing into that, then you can get like mutations and things. That's my very limited knowledge of why like things like aging and stuff happen, is because your cells know after a certain amount of division you gotta stop.
Like, but like, right. So like, is there like a process that we can define that would undo that? Is that like a physically, and I would argue to say it's not physically possible.
Right.
And that would be the definition of why the problem exists with time. I would say it's not physically possible to have that law of physics exist in reality. We can have it exist on pencil and paper, but there's certain processes that would decrease entropy overall, and that would be a problem physically. So there has to be some sort of laws that can't exist in that sense. And that would be, I say that would be the problem. And though that can be extrapolated in small senses with the measurement gates in quantum computing, where like, you know, you don't know anything about the wave function after you take the measurement, or you don't know anything about the information after you take the measurement. It's a black body of information. You can't talk about like what's the processes that are happening because you don't know them. You can make gates and force things through, and you can talk about it in that sense, but you can't say like, you know, before a particle is measured, it is in this state, because we don't even know if that sentence is worth asking or meaningful to ask. So it's in that sense that I think that there's a lot of areas of time that we don't understand. And if we do understand them, like if we do understand time's true role in quantum mechanics and general relativity, which I think we have a decent idea of it in general relativity, but I think quantum mechanics, we still lack a good understanding of time. I think that's where we kind of like get to the part where we have a better idea of answering the important questions. Yeah, so that's just those are just my thoughts. I mean, like I said, time is becoming a lot more of an exciting thing. Recently, like groups like Nima Arkani Hamad's group and stuff is now trying to figure out if ordering can actually matter inside of loop diagrams and things like that, using like his amplitude-hedron methods and whatnot that he does. So it's becoming a more popular topic to study. But I definitely don't think it's amongst mainstream concerns. But yeah.
Yeah, I think we could definitely go down the rabbit hole of talk, because then you get into the whole, you know, how you quantize, like in second quantization, post-equal time commutators, but then there's different formalisms where it's not coordinate time, you use equal proper time. When you do this quantization, you get like what's called light front quantum field theory. I'm
a little unfamiliar with that term actually, but interesting. And like I said, like right now, so my current project is processing quantum information inside of quantum computing, relativistic quantum information, and it's just a matter of like, you know, trying to figure out even if quantum information can be processed relativistically. And there's certain situations where it can't, like you have to have certain type of unitary operators and certain types of scenarios where like this happens and this happens in order to actually make it so it's causally connected, or else you end up getting like faster than light travel or something that just doesn't exist, and then you have problems. So there's that aspect that I'm looking at more, I guess, getting back into the sink your teeth into stuff things, and not just like like woo like what's the time, man. So that's kind of like the fun things I'm concerned with, but excellent answers.
So that one question was, what's the big problem? And that still only counts as one.
Yeah.
By the way, your audio is kind of skipping a little bit on my end. I don't know if it's happening, if that's just me, or if someone can.
What do you think, chat? Is my audio dropping?
Might just be me.
Good here. Okay, so hopefully, I swear by my time crystals. Yo, you want to get your mind blown? Look up time crystals and Frank Wilczek. That shit's weird. Yeah. Good stuff. Still haven't found time crystals. Still haven't found them. But they make perfect sense. Anyways, I think we're on to the next segment. Are you ready?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, I'm gonna grab another.
Actually,
drink
this is
from
the
my
drinking
fridge.
game, right?
This
'Cause I
is the
need another
drinking
drink.
game. Yeah, me too. We're gonna take a quick second. We'll be right back. I'm gonna grab another drink,
Why is the rum gone?
and we'll be right back. Okay. All right. I'll see you in a second. All right, everybody, we are back. Okay.
So hey, it's just I think I might try to re-enter the Zoom call if that's cool, because every time you speak, it like doubles up on the audio, lagged by a little bit. So do you mind if I do that real quick?
Do you have the stream open?
Yes.
Is it muted?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, you can yeah, just join up again. That's fine.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Don't worry about it. Don't look at me. I feel this is so weird. Super trippy. Big Eric. People used to call me Big E. There's a reason too. Whoa. Oh, jeez. We had way too much fun with that. Hold on. Ah, here we go. Oh, man. How about the future just exists? That's a whole nother topic of presentism versus eternalism, and we don't have time for that conversation. I feel like you guys are making fun of me. Okay, stop making fun of me about liking time stuff, guys. Jeez, Lou. Andrew, how's the audio?
It's still doing it a little bit, but it's not too bad. I won't hold us up.
Okay. I don't think there's any reason it should be doing it. That didn't help anything, did it? Another thing I could try. Let's try that. Is that any better? If I did that?
Keep saying stuff.
I will keep
It
on
sounds
saying
much better
stuff.
on my end.
Well, I think maybe I had it plugged in something different, I guess. It looks like it's still going through the OBS. So as long as it's going through with OBS and can you hear me now? Yeah, I think we should be good. Okay.
That sounds good on my end. So.
Okay, cool. I was afraid to change that setting before we started, but I changed it now anyways. Can you hear me now? The trader that moved from AT&T to Verizon, that guy? What a shame. Anyways. Okay, let's play our game. Now, today's game, as you guys like to know that whenever I have guests on, I like to play games. I like to include you too. So we're going to do this. We're going to do it right. Let's get into here. Here we go. We're playing arXiv versus snarXiv, but there's a bit of a twist this time. Firstly, we're going to be starting with our game of click map. So if you never used click maps before, I have the click map thing live right now. I just started it. You can, if you're at a PC, unfortunately this is mostly interactive with PC players. If you're at a PC, click on the screen at anywhere you want, and that counts as a vote. I hope this still works because I had to get rid of this extension, but I did bring it back. So this is also kind of like a test run. So if anybody is at a PC that can click on the PC, I don't know if it's working. It should be on. Is anybody doing it? Mods? Help? I don't see any clicks.
I thought you were professional.
I changed it for the game show, and I changed it back. Not on. Easy fix. I hope it's an easy fix. It should be an easy fix. Let's go here. Let's go here. Let's go here. Give me just a moment while we get this set up. It'd be much more fun if you guys can play. If not, it will be Andrew and I will just play by ourselves. But obviously, it's a lot more fun if you play. Let's see if I can do this on the fly. Haha. I gotta go back here. We'll go here. We'll go here. We'll go here. We'll go here. Okay. And then do I refresh? Is there a refresh? Okay. All right. Let's try again. Stop. Who's? All right. Let's try again. Are they drinking at the bottom of the on the bottom where it's yes. So try to click again. Let's see if this works. It should be on again. I hope. I hope. Let's see. What does this say? Not working for you. Why is this not working? Let's see here. Click maps. I'm very confused now. Oh, it's not activated. Shame. Shame on me. Shame on me.
In the meantime, we'll play Guess the Mass of the D0 meson.
There we go. It's on now. Okay. So as you can see, if you are clicking on the screen, it will count your vote as it will register. You can vote as many times as you want. And look at that. They're clicking on my face. Classic Tyrion. Okay, so now you can click to vote if you would like to cast your vote. So here's how this game is going to work. Okay. We will alternate turns for some rounds until time's up, I suppose. Where each round, we will take roughly 30 seconds to... I gotta get my timer up. Let's see here. Timer. Where you'll have roughly 30 seconds to tell us, or to vote on which one you think is the real article. So the goal is for this game, if you've never played arXiv versus arXiv, one of these titles is fake and one of these titles is real. One of them is generated by a computer and one of them is actually a title on the arXiv. So your goal is to guess which one is correct. Now, the way that will work is I will start a 30-second timer for each of these. Andrew and I will be on one team and Twitch chat will be on another team. So let's close this. So for example, with this one, we'll just play a quick round of example here.
Are you going to share your screen on my end, or?
No, you'll probably have to look on.
Okay.
Because if I share it, we'll lose our video, unfortunately.
Second.
Unfortunately, yeah, it will be the one thing I haven't figured out is a good way to do this with the guest.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, and I changed over Andrew to Kraken rum, spiced rum. So that way we'll both be on the liquor train. Okay, now
we'll both be drunk texting our advisors after this.
I did it. I solved it.
You know what? Fuck you.
Okay, so like for this one, like I don't know which one's real. This looks like fake. So if I thought this looked like fake, I would pick progress in models of W bosons, and it was wrong. The other one was actually real. So that's the game. Is you don't know which one's real, you don't know which one's fake, and the game is you have to get the correct answer. So we will take turns at the end of, I don't know, a certain amount of rounds. We will tally up the scores, and it will be Andrew and I versus you. And here's the deal. We're adding a twist. It's a drinking game. So every time one of these titles, one of these words shows up in one of the titles, Andrew and I and you all will take a little drink. Okay, little drink, because we're both drinking liquor and I need to finish the stream. So we'll both take a little drink, and no ADS. No, that's too easy. So it will be fun. And then if Twitch chat does beat Andrew and I, then I will let you all go to Discord and pick we'll get a couple suggestions and pick a channel point reward for my channel for a full week. So if you don't know how that works, you guys can cash in your channel points from just being in chat. They're free points. I think I call mine qubits. I'm qubits. You can cash in the amount of qubits. It'll probably be like 2,500 to 3,000 qubits for whatever reward you all pick on Discord. So that will be the reward if you beat us. But you got to beat us first. And I think with Andrew on my side, we stand a chance. Okay.
Where do you have the words, by the way?
They're on the bottom of the screen. So it's strings, brain,
right in front of my face.
strings, brain, cosmology, formalism, gauge, and effective. And any combination of those words counts as a drink. So, or any like form of that word. So if it's strings or brains or cosmologies or formalisms, anything like that. So to start, I think Andrew and I will go first. We'll play a few rounds and see where we're at with points. And I have a little tally here of whether or not we get it right. So I'm going to start the timer, and we're going to skip this one. I'm going to start the timer now. And as I read the question, we will take a drink when it comes up. So it's going to be a time constraint too. And if 30 seconds is not long enough, then we'll add on to it. But let's start with 30 seconds. Timer starts now. Let's get through this one. So Andrew, our first one is charmonium in the vector channel at finite temperatures from QCD, some rules, or natural inflation. Okay, so we have a drink-free round, which is really good. So now we have to think about what this is, and we have 10 seconds. Do you like natural inflation or the charmonium?
I think I like natural inflation because like that's a lot of really big buzzwords in QCD, but I don't see how they really connect each other.
Let's do natural inflation. Here we go. Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no. Oh no.
Right, the one thing I should probably have known and guessed right.
Okay. I need a chance to look. 30 seconds is too short, so we're gonna up it to 45 seconds. That makes a lot more sense to me. Okay, so let's start it up. Okay, so now Twitch chat, you're up. Theory of semi and non-leptonic decays of heavy mesons versus explaining a bulk resolution of the flavor problem. Click Maps is on now. Oops, hold on, I stopped it. Okay, Click Maps is on now. You have 45 seconds to tell me which one you think is the correct answer. Is it theory of semi and non-leptonic decays of heavy mesons, or explaining a bulk resolution of the flavor problem? I think we made it through two things without having a single drink. Wow,
Didn't we get that one wrong? The first one wrong?
Oh yeah. Oh, are we drinking when we get it wrong too?
Oh, that's what I thought.
I was gonna drink every time one of those words showed up.
That's probably more reasonable.
Because what if we don't get anything wrong? All right, how we doing? You got a couple seconds left. It's a little split, but it looks like the theory of semi and non-leptonic decays of heavy mesons is winning. Last second. Okay, we're gonna stop this. And Twitch chat, you chose theory of semi and non-leptonic decays of heavy mesons. You are you're correct. Damn it. Okay. Andrew, here we go. Condensates on the surface of the sun are anomaly mediated versus instanton effective action formalism for 2-point and 4-point functions. So we had two drinks with that one. Whew.
That sounds. Right. What do you think?
Time starts now. Condensates on the surface of the sun are anomaly mediated?
That doesn't sound like a word or like a phrase. Like you can think of like an effective action and then calculating 2-point and 4-point functions. I feel like that's it.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I don't know. We're almost out of time. I would say I'm gonna go with you on this one. Instanton effective action formalism. Yeah, that seems more general, more basic. Let's do it. Anomaly mediated condensates seems a little bit ridiculous. Let's do this one. Here we go. Ready? We got it. Woohoo!
I'm still waiting for it to update on my end.
Oh no, really? I wonder what the lag is. You're gonna have to go off of my reaction. All right. Next up, we have testing TeV scale quantum gravity using dijet production at the Tevatron versus locality revisited. All right, your time starts now. I think I'm gonna do 30 seconds after I'm done reading. That makes more sense. So we're gonna do that. Where are you guys voting? Here we go. You guys are where? What is that blob? It's in the center? What are you doing? Okay, let's see here. All right, there we go. Okay, so it looks like Twitch chat is picking testing TeV scale quantum gravity using dijet production at the Tevatron. Locality revisited seems, I don't know. What do you think? Locality revisited seems pretty straightforward, but
I've seen some really short paper like titles.
Yeah.
You know, but testing TeV scale quantum gravity using dijet production at the Tevatron.
I guess.
Well, TeV and Tevatron work together, so it's like if this was randomly generated, that's consistent with itself.
That's true. Where is the Tevatron? What is the Tevatron? I don't even know what that is. Your time
is it still
up.
Called the Tevatron?
I have no idea.
I'm kind of blanking.
I have no idea. Well, your time is up. 11 people have voted. They unanimously agree that the left one is the correct one. Here we go. Son of a gun. Okay, this is getting a bit spicy. Here we go. Next round. 2 photon distribution amplitudes or type 2b strings.
Oh God.
Drink up. Strings is on it.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Here we go. Timer started.
So distribution amplitudes are a thing. 2 photon distribution amplitudes.
Type 2b strings seems so real, though. Like type 2b strings are a thing.
Are they? I have no idea.
It's one of the types of strings before they were connected via M theory. But
what could that mean?
But why would anyone write about that on arXiv?
Yeah, unless it's like a review.
Oh, time is up. We have to pick one. 2 photon distribution amplitude sounds fake to me. What do you think? Type 2 strings?
It kind of sounds real to me, but I got the first one wrong when we went with me, so I'll let you choose.
All right,
don't you put that on me.
Oh no.
What was it?
It was the 2 photon distribution amplitudes. You were right. God. Oh man, this is not looking good for us. Okay, here we go. Next one. Light like polygonal Wilson loops in 3D Chern-Simons ABGM theory. Unexpected approaches to the hierarchy problem. Okay, I think we're good on drinking this round. What do you think? What do you?
I mean, Wilson loops. I've never heard of a. I mean, polygonal. Normally, the only ones I've ever seen have been like staple shaped.
Voting started, guys.
Oh, sorry. I'm probably
go ahead.
The...
You're not. No. We have a strategy. You know, we're trying to win because I don't really want them to. Last time they took over my channel points, they made me yell at clouds. So like, I'm not happy about them taking over my channel points. We don't want them to win. So yeah, Wilson. I think ABGM theory sounds awesome. I'd love to be on that. I'd love to be on that bandwagon.
I don't know what that is.
Just go along with it, please.
I don't know what that is doing in something like this, which is clearly the not snarXiv. That's what I mean.
Right.
That's the answer.
Clearly, this is not snarXiv. Last time it was push-ups. Oh, that's true. And then push-ups made it on like indefinitely. Oh, by the way, I'm not doing push-ups today, so don't even think about it. I don't think I turned it off. We'll refund and we'll do it some other day.
Wait, isn't ABJM that thing that has to do with the polygonal Wilson loops?
Yeah. 100%. And you find that in.
I think they have to be. Is it space?
I think you find it in quantum field theory and condensed matter is where you find that stuff.
I think it only works with
unless it's in the standard
it's
model of
light-like.
beyond.
I think it's light-like ones.
Yeah, it's in those books definitely. Those books are the ones. All right, time is up. 9 users have voted that it's the unexpected approaches to the hierarchy problem. Swear to God. Yes! Andrew gets all of my original, like all of my initial feedback. Fantastic. Haha. I fooled ya. I think. Because I totally knew what all that was. Um,
100% too.
yeah, I know all these research things. I'm so smart. Okay, so let's go on with the next one. Andrew, we have 5D5 brains at the center of the galaxy. That's a drink right there. And simulating plasma instabilities in SU3 gauge theory. That's another drink.
This gauge one? Oh yeah.
Yeah, gauge is one. Happening awful fast.
So what's the difference if you say SU3 gauge theory? What's the difference between that and QCD?
Good question. Does
'Cause
QCD
if you say-
include? Does QCD include like the U1Y SU2L?
No, if you say I want a Lagrangian that's local SU3 gauge invariant that's renormalizable, that is QCD.
Right.
So I'm like, I wonder why they wouldn't. I wonder why option 2
But-
wouldn't just say QCD.
But what the hell is a 5D brain at the center of the galaxy? Like,
Well, aren't there those like cosmic string people?
yeah, they exist somewhere. I don't even know where they exist.
Simulating plasma instabilities in
Wait,
SU3
cosmic strings are not
gauge.
the same thing as normal strings, though. So,
I'm
like,
just thinking like galaxy so big. That's my brain's simple.
I'm just thinking that galaxies are big. You heard it here first, folks.
I have it on good authority. I'm dating an astronomer. The galaxies are pretty big.
All right. Let's see. We have to pick though. Our time has been pretty up. Are we gonna do simulating plasma instabilities? I'm gonna let you pick this one because I failed this last time. I think the left one sounds completely ridiculous, but the right one seems
All
like
right.
they're making it more complicated. So now I don't know. They're making it like the right one seems more like it's word jargon that's unnecessary, and the left one just seems silly. So I don't
mean,
know
technically-
which one to pick.
I guess it's like if you use, say, not the quark masses, and maybe a different coupling, maybe that's technically different, but still local SU3 invariant. So the parameters don't match the QCD parameters. Maybe you don't have to call it QCD or something. So maybe we should just go with that one.
Okay, let's go with that one. A hot day, Major. We are tied 2-2. And we are into the bottom of the, I don't know, some baseball term. Next question. Yeah, I love this. It's good. Next question. Here we go. Voting is live. Symplectic quantization of open strings, damn it, and non-commutivity in brains, damn it. That's 2. Versus deriving the old solution to the little hierarchy problem using surface defects on the apparent horizon. Good lord, that word
yes,
salad.
the old one.
What? Deriving the old solution.
I
Yes.
picture like the Rob Schneider where he's like, "You give him easy ones" from Big Daddy. Hip
Yeah.
Hop Anonymous.
Oh man, there's only 2 people voting on this one. I feel like we got this. We'll wait till a vote pops up. I feel like we got this. We have to kind of throw
Yeah,
in some
they don't
mind
make-
games.
They don't make new solutions like the old one.
No,
Yes, me.
no, I think that the old solutions are 100% better. Like if you they're sturdy, they're solid, you know what I mean? They're well built. It's not
But
It's-
overproduced now recently.
Yeah, I know, right? Everything's so easy. You can just order it online. You can order a new solution online. It's bogus.
And the parameters that you tune nowadays, it's like they're auto-tuned parameters. It's just it's ridiculous.
Auto-tune parameters. I feel like that's a good title for a paper. Auto-tuning your parameters. Oh man. All right, so we have voting is now closed. 8 people are convinced it's the left one. Is it the left one, or are we officially going to be tied with them? Here we go. Some bitch. Okay.
You give him easy ones.
All right. Next up is ours, Andrew. We have reviewing the models of dark energy from an unexpected resolution of the hierarchy problem versus baryonic states in QCD from gauge/string to large NC. That's a double whammy, Andrew. Here we go. Oh, good gracious. I'm glad this is almost over. This is gonna be. If we had to do this for like another 15 minutes, I think I would be toast. Okay, so let's see. So what are we thinking, Andrew? Are we doing reviewing models of dark energy from an unexpected resolution of the hierarchy problem, or baryonic states in QCD from gauge string duality of large n sub c?
Unexpected resolution sounds too confidently open-closed for a physics paper, right?
Unexpected resolution.
Like it's done.
Yeah.
It's resolved. We know it now. And
it was
that,
unexpected?
Yeah, for the unexpected was a surprise to be sure. But a resolute
surprise
one.
to be sure. It's like when I finish my PhD. It's a very unexpected resolution.
Baryonic states in QCD from gauge string duality at large. What is the following one? And is it just n sub c?
N sub c at large. N sub c.
What if that's like charm number or something?
I don't even know. Compactified? What could it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm leaning towards the second one.
Baryonic states?
Yeah, I don't know what gauge string duality means, but
I think it's real. It sounds real.
Anytime I see like anything that has to do with string theory, dark matter, or dark energy, I'm like, that's not real.
All right, let's go with it. I believe. I don't like unexpected resolution of the hierarchy problem either, because I feel like that's silly. Okay, so
like,
let's go.
Who do you think you are? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like, firstly, you didn't solve the hierarchy problem, and second of all, unexpectedly you solved it. Okay, guy, whatever.
Oh, you know what? Non-dairy neutrino. All right, so maybe this doesn't count because they did have a good point.
Guitar
strings have gauge.
Mr. Dotson on the money. Here we go. Let's see here. Okay. We have for our lovely Twitch chat. Voting is live. Beautiful approaches to the typical state problem. Sorry. Beautiful approaches to the typical state problem versus coherent state quantization of a particle in de Sitter space. For some reason, I just feel like beautiful approaches is 100% something that a physicist would write on a paper.
Well, if you think about it, so I think it's our friends, our European friends, who instead of saying top and bottom, call it truth and beauty. So I think that's very clearly talking about those kinds of quarks.
Very
And
insightful.
when's the last time you saw a de Sitter that wasn't immediately like prefaced with a big fat anti, right?
Right. Ooh, this is tough.
So,
This is tough. Beauty in the standard model approaches to the typical state problem. I so badly want that to be real. Like
typical state.
This is such a
This
stupid,
is rigged. You're
such a stupid typical state. Oh my
Just a
goodness.
typical.
It's like
you get a final state. Like you measure, like you're measuring a cross section in a final state, and you're just like,
throw your hands up in the air.
typical.
Typical state. I can't stand it. Okay, so we have 10 people who have voted on the right one. Here we go. 10 people believe the coherent state quantization of a particle in de Sitter space. Here we go. Ready? Pow. Damn it. Okay.
Wow.
The score is 3-4. This will be the last round. Basically,
Who's winning?
They are. Basically, Andrew and I have to get this correct to stay in the game. If Andrew and I don't get this correct, the game is over. Y'all can go into my Discord and discuss what you would like to punish me for a week with. And and I guess that's that. If we get this correct though, then you'll have to get yours correct, or it will end in a tie, which ultimately means you don't get anything. And that's because I think that's funny. Okay. Let's go with polarized J-psi production from B mesons at the tevotron versus equations of type 2b. So they don't actually say strings, so I don't think we have to drink because they don't say strings, even though type 2b strings are what they're talking about. But nevertheless, let's discuss what this could be. So polarized J-psi production from B mesons at the tevotron seems 100% legit to me. What do you think?
It definitely sounds like it. What would be such useful information right now would be which one has the larger mass, right? Because if you have something that's like decaying into a J-psi, but it like weighs less than it, then it'd be like, oh, okay, so this one must be BS. But I don't know what the masses are. But yeah, I think that one.
Okay, so we're both in agreement. We think the first one is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. I don't want to look. I don't want to look until you look. You tell me. I'm going to turn around. You tell me.
Okay, I'll let you know. Damn it.
No, wait. What?
No, it was right.
Oh, yes. Awesome. Okay. Now, Twitch chat. Now it's on you. We went through the ringer. Now it's on you. You have, let's see. We're going to start this up. Voting is live. You have non-vanishing Donaldson-Witten invariance versus geometric Langlands duality. What? In Jacobi-Titelbaum gravity. What is that? What is that? Jacobi-Titelbaum gravity with a singlet fermion versus some classical and quantum algebras.
Well, you've got your Hey, classical would be like, U1.
Yeah.
Right?
U1 EM, definitely.
Quantum would be like U1.
U1Y, definitely. I'm feeling you on this. We have different gauge groups. Some gauge groups are very good at classical stuff.
Yeah.
And I like them.
There is no quantum field theory without understanding the algebras. I mean, they form the natural vector space, the Lie algebra, for which you would write your basis of generators and like local SU3. That's why we know that there are the 8 generators and things like that. So.
But I do think we're forgetting the dynamic duo, the ultimate pair of Jacobi-Titelbaum, who have done so many things in gravity, namely with singlet fermions. I think that that pair, JT, as some of us call them, are unseparable.
JT and the Tennessee Kids, as they refer to themselves, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, definitely. I've heard that. I've heard that before on the physics streets. Voting's closed. 11 users. 11 users are convinced that that the paper title is some classical and quantum algebras. Here we go for the final. This is if you get this, you get your channel point reward. If not, you get nothing. And I'm gonna be satisfied. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Damn it.
My day is ruined.
I think we both agreed like telepathically that one there was no way.
We did. And then everyone started voting on it. So I tried to jump ship. I tried to be like, wait, they're all voting on it. Oh no, it might be true.
Oh, I thought you were just trying not to make it obvious.
No, I thought it was correct, and then they all voted on it, and I was like, oh shit, it is correct.
Then we started talking about like classical versus quantum, and then it was like, oh wait, actually.
Oh man.
Maybe.
Okay, everybody, hop into the Discord if you're not part of it already. Feel free to suggest a channel point reward. Tomorrow morning, I will make that channel point. I will make a poll for some various suggestions for what you'd like to see me do. Some things in the past is I've done the cup trick where you explain spin by spinning a cup around multiple times. I've done that.
Oh yeah.
While simultaneously yelling at clouds like an old man. So that was nice. Thank you. The other thing I did was whistle the Mickey song from Steamboat Willie that you made me do that before. That was unfortunate for me. And then push-ups, which now have made their way into a normal thing, which apparently tomorrow I owe Tyrion 20 push-ups and 25 sit-ups. Thank you, Tyrion. Appreciate you for also saying you hate me early on and now making me exercise. So anyways, I appreciate that very much. Anyways, hop into the Discord and let me know what you'd like to see for the next week. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me. What a wonderful evening it's been.
Yeah,
really
thanks for having
it.
me. This was a blast.
Not only did we learn a ton about, oh, we have a request to draw the pony. Have you seen the pony, Andrew?
Not.
So we have a mascot on stream. So what happened? Let me tell the story really quick. What happened was when I used to be a chef, we had a contest, Andrew, that was basically like when you work in a kitchen, like chefs happen to be very talented artists most of the time. Like there's a large subset of chefs who are very, very talented at drawing. And a question one day arose whether or not I could draw. So they got into a bit of a heated debate where they started placing bets on whether or not I could draw. So the idea was, okay, I will when Eric comes into work tomorrow, the next day, they will get me to draw an object, and I will draw the object. And if I can draw it well, then there was I think there was a substantial pool of money based on whether or not I could draw. So they tasked me with drawing a pony, and I did, and I've done it for stream, and now it's become our mascot. So let me draw the pony if you don't mind. That was one of the channel points that just got cashed in. Give me one moment.
I like how in that explanation you didn't say whether or not you could do it. So I'm in large anticipation. Okay, so maybe this is a no. That's a plumbus.
So as you can see, this delicate creature, beautiful creature, actually they didn't like it. But anyways, that's not the point. The point is that our Twitch chat likes it. And that is the mascot for the stream. Is is Emoni gone? No, Emoni's not gone. Emoni's just forgotten. Anyways, let's wrap it up here. Let's give it let me get some hearts in chat for our wonderful guest Andrew tonight. Thank you so much. Cosmolano, I'll draw the Emoni tomorrow, please. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate it.
Thank you again for inviting me to do this. This was a lot of fun. Yeah, we should do this again sometime. Maybe I'll do a live stream. Maybe you convince me to try to do more of those on my channel. We'll have to have you on.
I can as a viewer, I can tell you that your community would love to see you live stream more, and I'd be very excited to see that happen. So if you ever need anything, let me know, and I'd be more than willing to share what I've learned over the last year of live streaming. So yeah, I would love to help make that happen. So let me know if I can do that in any way.
Awesome.
But anyways, viewers,
I'll
thank you.
hold you to that.
Wonderful. I will so everyone, we will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. for our live stream. We will be doing we'll start with a little quantum computing, and then we'll be moving into our game show where you can win a fabulous prize if you're the first place winner. So thank you again for being here. If you have not followed the channel, follow the channel. If you've not followed the socials, here they are. Feel free to join the Discord. Follow me on YouTube, where I put up edited down VODs and things like that. Of course, you have Andrew's YouTube. Let me get that up here again. Make sure if you are not following Andrew on YouTube, you do that for his fantastic, amusing content. Thank you so much, everybody. I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Farewell. Andrew, any final words?
Call your parents. They'd love to hear from you.
That's remarkably deep. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Take care.